Good afternoon to everyone. It's my pleasure once again to compare the day's proceedings. May I first invite our enigmatic and dynamic principal, the inspiration behind this webinar, to kindly welcome the esteemed panelists today from India and abroad. Over to you, Madam.
Thank you, Samita. Good afternoon, everyone. Our esteemed chief guest for today's session, Pro-Vice Chancellor of Mumbai University, Professor Ravindra Kulkarni ji. Our distinguished speaker, Dr. Nagarjuna, Associate Professor, Homi Bhabha Center for Science Education. And Dr. Rahul Makhijani, Research Scientist, Facebook, California, USA. All invitees, members of Vijnana Bharati, all members of organizing team, and my dear participants. Warm welcome to you all from Vivekananda Education Society's College of Arts, Science and Commerce, Chembur, Mumbai. We are very thankful to each one of you for overwhelming response for our webinar and yesterday's session and words of appreciation from across the country. Today, we are at day 2 of this national webinar, and the sub-theme for today's webinar is Innovations for Online Teaching, Learning and Research. All the three areas are backbone of our education system, and each one of us present over here are trying hard to strengthen this backbone with whatever innovative ways we can think of. It is a great privilege and honor to have Pro-Vice Chancellor of Mumbai University, Professor Ravindra Kulkarni ji, as chief guest on this occasion. He is known to be a great teacher and inspiring researcher. The second speaker, Dr. Nagarjuna, major research interest is in science education, and he focuses on promoting free knowledge and free software. Dr. Rahul Makhijani, we are sure, will bring in an international perspective of teaching, learning and research from California, USA, for the benefit of all participants. I hope you all are going to have a great learning experience on day 2 with many innovative ideas to implement in future. Thank you. Stay safe and healthy. Now, over to Samita to formally introduce the sub-theme of day 2 of our national webinar and also to give a befitting introduction to our chief guest, Professor Ravindra Kulkarni. Over to you, Samita.
Good afternoon. Welcome back to day 2 of the webinar on steering higher educational institutions in the wake of COVID-19, the way ahead for academia. I am Sahita Sharma-Kain, Head and Associate Professor in the Department of Economics, V.E.S. College of Arts, Science and Commerce. We are very happy to have with us today experts not just from within the country but also abroad. Friends, today's world is more uncertain, unpredictable and turbulent than anyone could have ever imagined before. In the current scenario, there is no choice but for mainstream education to go online. But as we are pushed from real life into virtual reality, we should also learn our lessons from the real life classrooms that have sprung up all around us, especially in the wake of this pandemic. It is entirely up to us to transition in a very conscious, inclusive, sensitized, and innovative way. For both the teachers and students, this is extremely important. In this respect, orientation and training programs for graduating from offline to online platforms smoothly and comfortably are absolutely necessary. While today we are witnessing a flood of such programs for the teaching community, At the same time, we should also not forget to do the same for our students once our transition process is complete. We also need to adopt flexible pedagogical approaches that are best suited to the diverse learner profiles of the educational institutions. In the process of this transition, however, we have to account for our technological and infrastructural issues on the one hand and accessibility to the available facilities by all sections of society on the other hand. And we have to constantly go on innovating to keep the students involved and interested in the online teaching process. Indeed, the challenges are far too many, but once the adjustment is made, many benefits will be realized, especially owing to the flexibility that the online systems provide to both the teachers and the students. As the situation improves, we can then move over to what is known as blended learning by inserting some amount of face-to-face sessions along with the online learning. After all, there is no real substitute for the magic that unfolds live between the teacher and the student in the classroom. Perhaps such thoughts are churning in everyone's mind who's sitting and watching this webinar being broadcast. All of us academicians. Isn't that so? No wonder we have got the maximum number of entries of innovative ideas for day 2 of this webinar, that is today. In fact, as I am unfolding today's theme, I am definitely drawing from the insights of my many fellow participants. Friends, the overall theme of the day is Innovations for Online Teaching, Learning and Research. And the sub-themes are the evolving teaching learning scenario today, open source digital learning solutions and learning management software, innovative online teaching methodologies, innovative conduct of student activities, and conduct of research in the changed times. While our keynote speaker of the day and the experts will be throwing light on some of these innovative ideas of many teachers from across the country will be presented to you later in the form of 3-minute video clips sent by them. Without much ado, we shall be beginning with the day's events in a few moments. Friends, it is now my privilege to introduce Professor Ravindra Kulkarni, Honorable Pro Vice Chancellor, University of Mumbai. Before being deputed as Pro VC, during 2016 to 18, he worked as Professor and Head, Department of Oils, Oleochemicals and Surfactant Technology at the Institute of Chemical Technology, Mumbai. And before that, he was Professor, Head, Department of Paint Technology and Director at UICT North Maharashtra University, Jalgaon. In his earlier years, his academic career graph presents an enviable picture. He is a BSc in Technology from ICT Mumbai and a gold medalist in MTech from Nagpur University. He was awarded the UGC Fellowship in 1991. Among his many subsequent laurels are the J.G. Kane Prize and UDCT Gold Jubilee Scholarship and the National Merit Scholarship. He holds a PhD degree in Engineering and Technology from Nagpur University. He is an eminent researcher, scholar, and consultant in his area of expertise and has rendered invaluable service to his country in this respect. His research guidance has umpteen PhDs, postdoctoral fellowships, MTechs getting awarded. He has 63 peer-reviewed journals in publications in journals across national and international journals. 2 patents have been granted and 5 filed. His R&D infrastructure projects from the top national institutions add up to a whopping almost rupees 16 crores. His fields of research include renewable polymers, nanopigments, oleochemicals, surfactants, biolubricants, and so on. For his outstanding research work, he has been bestowed with Best Research Funding Award 2017, Best Paper Award 2006, and these are just to name two. He has delivered more than 65 invited talks, made over 150 conference presentations, attended and conducted numerous trainings, conferences, and short-term courses. He has brilliantly handled a number of consultancy projects for eminent industries like Godrej, Samvin Global, Malaysia, Savita Oil Technologies, and many more. That's not all. Professor Kulkarni has also rendered invaluable services to higher education at the national and international level. In this endeavor, he has widely traveled the world. He has visited numerous countries. He is most experienced in handling quality issues, assessment and accreditation related practices, and at the same time, he has also served as Director IQAC, Senate member of the Academic Council of North Maharashtra University, Visitors Nominee for Executive Council of GNU, member UGC Working Group for preparing guidelines for University Industry Linkage Program, to name just a few. Friends, Professor Ravindra Kulkarni is not just an eminent researcher and efficient administrator, he is also a brilliant educationist and is admired by all his students. No wonder he was bestowed with the Best Teacher Award by His Excellency Shri K. Shankar Narayanan, Governor of Maharashtra, on 7th August 2014. Very clearly, we have today amongst us the most suitable stalwart for delivering the keynote address and setting the tone for the day's events. May I most humbly request Professor Ravindra Kulkarni to deliver today's keynote address. So over to you, Professor Kulkarni.
Thank you for introducing me. Am I audible? Am I audible?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Sir, you are audible. Your video is not seen. Yes, now we can see you, sir.
It's a management of Vijnana Education Society, Principal Cover Madam, all other dignitaries in the form of esteemed speakers, Dr. Nagarjun, Vijnana Bharati members, Professor Rajwade, Principal Rajwade, and all other delegates who are participating for this particular program on innovations in online teaching, learning, and research. Friends, although, as has been rightly pointed out, the mode of online teaching and research and learning has been made more significant and important in the post-COVID situation. In post-COVID situation where we have definite restrictions on the physical distancing, there probably online education definitely becomes a real matter of importance. Of course, online research probably have well begun way back for like having made journals available in online mode, submission of the research papers in online mode, going for a simulation experiment so that number of experiments that are required to be conducted physically can be minimized. So some of these research in online mode was already in process, and probably we are likely to have more such innovations in research mode in the years to come. Friends, online education and research was definitely a requirement. It's just being imposed by post-COVID situation. That's a different situation. But even then, it was very much essential and very much required also. Because as we have seen, there are changes on an industrial scale, and naturally, the one who supplies the manpower to the industry, the education sector, the education system also required to change in tune with the industrial innovations. We are normally come across industrial revolutions as industry first revolution, second revolution, third, likewise. In like first revolution, we have come across steam engine, second probably electrical engineers, third probably IT and biotechnology, and now we are coming across fourth industrial revolution. The way industrial fourth revolution is transforming the world through technologies like the Internet of Things, big data, artificial intelligence, data science, automations, and then data analytics. These are really impacting the major industries, and naturally, in turn, the job requirement or the job profile itself. So in tune with the fourth industrial revolution, we are also required to have similar changes in the education sector so that we will be able to fulfill the skill requirements of the industry itself. Now, when we look at the basic purpose of education and training, we say that the basic purpose of education and training is to empower an individual to lead a successful life and contribute best to himself or herself, to the family, to the society, to the nation, and the humanity itself. Therefore, education and training are the most effective tools to achieve this outcome. According to the new World Bank report, low education outcome and poor quality of the education are the biggest hurdles to the faster economic growth of a country as the young generation continue to be trapped in the poverty itself. So we require definitely a better education outcome, better quality of education, and where we naturally are required to go for a blended mode of learning with online teaching learning modes in combination with the physical mode of learning itself. Friends, as we think of replacement of the manual jobs by machine-handled tasks that occurred as a fourth industrial revolution, we require certain sets of skills which may not be feasible completely through on physical mode. So there you require definitely an online mode of education. In online mode of education, there are multiple things that are feasible. Say, for example, you can accelerate remote learning. In tune with fourth industrial revolution, we may say we have fourth revolution in the education. Like in the beginning, we had kind of a blackboard teaching. Then probably in second revolution, say around 1990s, we have certain features connected to multimedia, and that is how we moved from say the blackboard teaching, so maybe to the OHP kind of a teaching. Third education revolution, internet became available at massive level, and with massive internet really we can have very good availability of the knowledge through an internet mode, and that really reduced the entire dependence of the student on teacher because of the massive availability of the internet. At touch of button, major information could have started becoming available. With internet connected with many online platforms, say for example like Moodle, which became available in 2002, and then probably like recently Google Classroom, maybe like many online free education resources. As a result of that, the education could have been said to be switched over to the fourth revolution of the education. Now, what the fourth revolution of education permits, say like as we have said, accelerated remote learning. So education 4.0 will enable learning anytime, anywhere, and for anyone. So that's the most important aspects. So anyone can access the free online education platforms which are available in different modes. And it can be at his desired time, so anytime and anywhere. Right now, say for example, like over last 2 months, many of the colleges have provided education in online platform, through online platform, to the students who have migrated from the place of education to their native place, and that is how the student could learn and could have continuity of the education at any time and anywhere accordingly. and accordingly, connected with accelerated remote learning, we have many opportunities for self-paced learning. The student can learn at his own place. Normally, in a physical mode of learning, a teacher definitely has certain restrictions. In a class, we could have advanced learners who require very fast mode of learning. We have slow learners for whom we require repetitive teaching, for whom we require remedial teaching, for whom we require very good finishing mode of learning. And then we have a moderate learners who need to be taught at a moderate pace. Naturally, at physical mode of learning, a teacher has to adjust to the different modes of the learner, and according to that definitely presents certain restrictions. Like if you would like to satisfy the slow learners, advanced learners may become probably may not be fully satisfied. Probably learning at a pace required to the learner is probably the most important part of the online mode of learning. So that is where you get a personalized learning mode. So a personalized learning for students, depending on their capabilities, is one of the important connected feature of the online mode of teaching and learning. This means that above average students will be challenged with the tasks that are difficult as compared to students who are below average. This implies that there will be individual learning process for each student, and it will surely have a positive impact, and it will enable students to learn at their pace. This will result in a better understanding of the concepts and overall better result. It will also help teachers to identify the strengths and weaknesses of each student individually and guide them accordingly. Then, besides these two, like remote learning and personalized learning, you have very good choice of education tools. It's not only needed, it's not only confined to the teaching in the classroom. It can be extended even to the teaching to the laboratories. So many laboratory experiments can be easily converted to a simulated mode and can be provided. Now, in fact, we have come across many novel simulations that has been carried by teachers of the University of Mumbai during these last 2 months, and that's really like I extend like congratulations to all the teachers who have developed many novel methods of laboratory teaching as well, because now really once we resume next semester learning, there will have definitely a major challenges. We have restrictions on the classrooms, and we have more number of students. So we have restrictions on the laboratory as well. Normally we undertake laboratory practicals for 20 students of a, for a batch of 20 students. Now because of physical distancing mode, it may have to be reduced to the 10. So probably a good simulated mode of learning for laboratory demonstration will help a lot. A part of online education will be the technology or devices used by the students to gain an education. While every subject has its own set of knowledge and information that the students can grasp, the road to attaining this knowledge can vary. And this means that the students will be able to choose the tools and techniques through which they want to acquire this knowledge. Techniques like blended learning, bring your own device, flipped classrooms are a few examples of this. Besides teaching learning, we will be coming across so many different modes of evaluations. So for example, changes in the exam pattern and assessment. Now online mode of examination really as a part of regular teaching could have been easily feasible. Current student pattern of rote learning, wherein students blindly memorize the information given in the curriculum and write down their exams, will not be the trend henceforth. Here now it is essential to understand that a traditional question and answer or subjective writing examination may not suffice the needs of future talent requirements connected with the fourth industrial revolution. So this means that the assessment as a part of fourth revolution in education will not be solely based on the current examination patterns, but it will be done by analyzing their learning journey to practical and experimental learning based projects as well as field works. And UGC has definitely supported, UGC as well as MHRD has supported this online mode of teaching and learning as well. UGC has given guidelines in the year 2016 so that you can have at least 20 credits devoted to the online mode of education. And currently, we are thinking that of the total course which the teacher is teaching, at least 25% of the course could have been transferred to the online mode of teaching itself. Government of India through MHRD has given many initiatives like EPG Pathshala. Then you have a consortium for educational communication, that is CEC, through which probably like you can have a SWAYAM platform, which is the program initiated by the government of India, and has been designed to achieve the 3 cardinal principles of education policy. That is access, equity, and quality. So the objective of this effort is to take the best teaching learning resources to all, including the most weaker sections, the disadvantaged sections. SWAYAM seeks to bring the digital divide for students who have either to remain untouched by the digital revolution and have not been able to join the mainstream of the knowledge economy. So that's how they have started right from the class 9 itself. So besides SWAYAM, particularly for engineering, pharmacy, sciences, we have NPTEL, that is National Program on Technology Enhanced Learning, which is the project of MHRD. And these are the 3 different initiatives from the government of India. And as every institute now will have to develop their own learning management systems so that one can identify training and learning gaps, utilize analytical data and reporting, and then one can focus on online learning delivery so as to use a range of platforms for online content, e-content development, including courses in different formats. So one comes across so many websites for online certificate courses also. Similarly, one can come across many platforms. As I said already, Moodle is one of the most popular open source learning management system options available today. It's a learning platform designed to provide educators, administrators, and learners with a single, robust, secure, and integrated system to create personalized learning environments. Then you can have e-tutor, you can have open OLAC, or you can have DR. So many open source learning management systems are now available, and definitely connected with this systems, one can have multiple live streaming social media platforms as well. And that's how, with all these combinations of tools, one can make online teaching and learning a really richer one. Friends, probably by having a very good webinar in the form of innovations in teaching, learning, and research, definitely the Vivekananda Education Society's college has made a real breakthrough. Across this webinar, you will be coming across a variety of the innovative developments in online teaching, learning, as well as in online research. And that really will make a teacher a really well equipped, a researcher a really well equipped in terms of good support to the experimental methods of methodology of the research. And probably with that, we are likely to come across so many technological advances connected with the online mode of teaching, learning, and research. Friends, I extend my best wishes to the all delegates. Please learn all these tools, take up these tools, and present best to the students who are very much eager to take up the current connected challenges to the post-COVID-19 situation. So institutions are required to be well prepared, students are required to be well prepared, teachers are required to be well prepared, and as well as the management or the educational administrators like university are also required to be well prepared in terms of a good support of technology, in terms of good support of infrastructure, in terms of well support of the quality internet bandwidth. Now internet is going to become the same the important element like our food, shelter. So in that way, internet is definitely the most important part now for all of us. And a good availability of the quality internet bandwidth is the most important requirement for success of online teaching, learning, and research itself. So we expect more innovations to come. I expect all teachers to take up those challenges and make our fourth education revolution a really successful at all colleges and university. So I extend my sincere thanks to the principal of Vivekananda Education Society College, as well as Vijnana Bharati for inviting for this webinar. I extend sincere thanks to all delegates for patient listening. Thanks to all of you. Jai Hind, Jai Maharashtra. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. That was truly a brilliant and effortlessly delivered speech. Indeed, sir, your exquisite delivery and profound knowledge has left us without words. We are really impressed. We too hope to aspire the heights that you have reached, or at least to some extent we aspire to reach that. Your outstanding performance in multifaceted roles that I talked about in the introduction leaves us again speechless. And yet, sir, your obvious humility and sensitivity touches us. Because after all, it is true, as Aristotle has said, that educating the mind without educating the heart is no education at all. And at the same time, sir, your sensitivity in removing the digital divide in this connection, that is really appreciated, and we all stand with you and we all feel the same. You have thrown light on various issues today connected with online teaching so lucidly and clearly, while also emphasizing the need for online education and training. You are so very well, you have explained the blended mode of teaching that we talked about in the beginning of the day today, and you have explained that so clearly, that how remote learning is very important, but that has to be gelled with face-to-face learning and physical learning. After all, as you said, anytime, anywhere, anyone, that has to be the mantra. And at the same time, you emphasized innovation, innovation, innovation. That is the key. And perhaps that is why that is also the theme of our webinar. Also, as you said, sir, empowering the students is extremely important, and we must allow them to choose the tools and techniques for learning, maybe a kind of a cafeteria approach that will help support them get over the infrastructural and other bottlenecks that you spoke about. And at the same time, the support by UGC and MHRD for adopting the online mode of teaching, that obviously, so you also have a role in that. That is helping to equip all of us teachers across the country, and we are really drawing from that support. This role that you have played there, sir, is really admirable. And you also talked about various platforms, courses, e-content development. We have to continuously keep updating in this direction. You have also emphasized here very consciously that while we are using all this plethora of options that is available to us, we must create personalized learning environments for the students where they are comfortable and they can get out of the situation, adapt to the new situation, the challenges that are being thrown up, not just to us, but the challenges are really far too many for the students. And I would only like to conclude my thanks to you by saying that we all have really learned from you, sir, and you have set the right tone for conducting the day's events and for taking education as a movement from the darkness that many of us are witnessing today. We will take it towards light. Thank you very much, sir. It was really an honor to have you with us. Thank you. Now over to you, Madhvi Madam, for taking the proceedings further.
Thank you, Samhita Madam. It was really great, whatever we have heard from Prof. Sir. Dr. Nagarjun would join us in some moments with us. So we will start with the IIP, that is Innovative Idea Presentation. And by that time, Dr. Nagarjun sir would be here with us because of some technical glitch at his end. Kindly bear with us. Thank you.
Good evening to all of you. I'm Dr. Ritika Makhijani from Chemistry Department. The COVID-19 pandemic has affected education systems all over the world, leading to total or partial closure of schools, colleges and universities over a long period of time. Due to the suspension of classes over a prolonged period, there's a significant impact on the education sector. This unplanned closure has severely affected the scheduled plans for completing the courses within the academic year. As the students and faculty remain confined to their homes, educational institutes are exploring ways to keep engaged with their students virtually and completing their courses. Aristotle had said, education is an ornament in prosperity and a refuge in adversity. Thus, it is essential to find a holistic solution for continuing the academics while adopting with this new lifestyle of social distancing. This situation has given rise to the need of adopting online teaching for educational institutes. Present educational scenario is greatly influenced and is highly driven by technology. The technological advancements has metamorphed the education system. A key aspect of innovation in the field of education is the adoption of new tools and technologies by the learner as well as by the faculty. These innovative ideas are transforming leaders for future and exploring all possible ways to achieve best technically optimized learning. Today's innovative idea presentations will showcase that education will continue to evolve. Innovations will keep on taking place and will have lasting impact for the years to come. Dear friends, we have received many entries for innovative idea presentations for teaching learning theme. Few selected innovative idea presentations will be displayed shortly in front of you in the form of 3-minute video clip. Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. The title of our innovative idea is Online Education, Making Teaching Learning More Effective by Adopting Flexible Pedagogy in the COVID Era. Let's begin by understanding what is flexible pedagogy all about. It's a learner-centric and learner-empowering educational strategy that operates in a flexible rather than fixed mode of teaching. The three crucial aspects of a model. First, the issue of accessibility to online learning platforms and materials. Second is the need for an orientation program for students to switch to the online learning mode from the offline mode. third, and the most important, is using cloud-based applications. Flexible pedagogy is advantageous to students and teachers both, like availability of free and quality resources. Cheap hardware and software works, no need of expensive instruments. Students save on expensive textbooks as well. The learning material is updated in real time. The time and location of learning can be decided as per the convenience of teacher, student, and so on. The important tools for our model success are: first, reaching out to more students. Second, easy use of ICT. Third, the role of teacher will shift from just traditional teaching to being a guide, facilitator, and a moderator. Fourth, podcast. These are the audio tapes that can be recorded and circulated easily. Fifth, again, the cloud. Let's understand the importance of these tools in a working model. I will explain that in a step-by-step process. Let's assume we are teaching a big class the importance of sustainable development. Step one would be to upload the material on a cloud-based application. For instance, using Dropbox. Now, material from world-class institutes, lectures on the topic are easily available, which can be uploaded no matter what the size of the file is. Step two, downloading the material hassle-free. Students can download the material and circulate it using different platforms like Telegram, WhatsApp, etc. Step 3, conducting live sessions where under open panel discussions, the students can discuss their point of view and their understanding. The professor here can moderate the session and keep the flow of the class in check. Step 4, the recordings of the live sessions will be shared with students for final note preparation and further analysis of the topic. Step 5, usage of podcast. Podcast can be used by professor to summarize the entire important topics that were discussed in the class and the ones that she feels can give students more to think about. Discussion of externalities and why it happens, what happens, and everything. Step 6, evaluation. Through quiz, assignments, and so many different strategies which are already available on Google Classrooms, the knowledge of the students can be tested. Conclusion, it's a bitter truth, COVID-19 is here to stay for quite some time. Let's take help of our friend technology, who's here to our rescue, giving us plethora of online options, keeping in mind that now we need to adopt blended learning system, which is a balance between face-to-face sessions and online sessions. Thank you.
Hi everyone, welcome to the presentation on innovation and technology for effective participatory learning. I am Praveen Matthew, Assistant Professor in Business Communication. I work with St. Francis Institute of Technology, Borivali, Mumbai. Initially, let us discuss what I mean by participatory learning. In order to make our lecture more interactive and interesting, we have to involve students. The involvement of students in our lecture is known as participatory learning. Why we are discussing on this? Because while conducting online lectures, we have to ensure whether our students are listening to our lectures in a proper manner. So there are a few tips to ensure whether our students are with us during the lecture. Tip number 1, use of question-answer session. In every application, there is a chat room. While you deliver the lecture, always use chat room. For example, after mentioning about a concept, you can ask your students, are you interested in this concept? If you are interested, chat yes in the chat box. Type yes in the chat box. Likewise, you can mention. So it ensures whether your students are with you. Okay, always use chat room. Second aspect, and this is the most important. In order to create interest and enthusiasm in our students, we have to gamify our concepts. while we gamify our concept, it will create fun and interest in our students. How we can gamify? With the use of certain applications like Kahoot.in. There are various applications, and according to me, Kahoot is the best one. Otherwise, we can use Google Forms. So Kahoot is an application which help us to create quizzes. And those quizzes, it is a kind of animated manner. So it will create fun and enthusiasm in our students. At the same time, it will create the result soon after they submit it. Okay, so likewise, we can ensure the participation of students by gamification of our concepts. Okay, due to the lack of time, I'm moving to the next point, that is the use of animated presentations and mind mapping tools. Always use PowerPoint presentation because it creates an impact. That visual element creates some kind of impact in our students. At the same time, the animation in our presentation creates enthusiasm, and it provides a very wonderful mental picture about the concepts. So use animation. Animation is essential for making wonderful mental picture. Then those students, they will never forget those aspects. And in order to create more understanding, use tools like XMind. So this is also a mind mapping tool. I created this with the help of XMind. XMind is an application. So use these kind of application to make our lectures more effective. To conclude, 3 things we have discussed. First one, use chat room. Second one, gamification of our concepts. And finally, use animated PPTs and mind mapping applications. So thanks for listening to me. And I'm not the sole creator of all these concepts. I got these ideas from various webinars. Okay, I just want to share it with you. Thank you so much for listening to me.
Hello everyone, I'm Dr. Madhu Vaidya from Computer Science Department. Thank you Savita ma'am for making the wonderful beginning of the day 2. This is second session on this day. Introducing our guest speaker, Dr. Nagarjun ji. He currently works in Homi Bhabha Science Center for Science Education, TIFR in Mumbai, as an associate professor. His major research interests include science education, cognitive science, history and philosophy of science, and structure and dynamics of knowledge. As an advocate of the open source environment, he focuses on free flow of information or software for today's Generation Z and serves as the chairperson of Free Software Foundation of India, that is FSF. From 2013 to 16, Department of Computer Science has conducted a lot of sessions with him, and he is project staff on free and open source computing technologies. We too have learned a lot of things from him in this process. It is a great honor for us to have you present in today's event and enlighten us with your knowledge and wisdom. Without further ado, I request Dr. Nagarjun to take over the stage. We all will be reserving 10 minutes at the end of this session for questions and answers. Participants, please add or write your questions in the chat box so that it will be easier for us to take them up one by one. Over to you, Nagarjun sir. Thank you.
Can you hear me? Hello?
Yes, sir. We can hear you, sir.
Okay. So I'm sharing my presentation screen also.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, is it visible?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Okay, very good afternoon, all of you. I'm extremely sorry for technical glitch. I was forced to upgrade my old version of the software to a new version, before which it took about 5 to 10 minutes before I managed to debug the issues and managed to join today. Thank you so much. So today, since this is a gathering of various academicians working in higher education area, I thought I would talk about one of the areas that we are working. So, I've been already introduced. So this is the lab where I work. This is called the Knowledge Lab, where we design and develop collaborative STEM engagements. So though I may be using the term STEM because we work in a center for science education, but what I'm going to say is applicable to almost all the subjects that we do at higher education. So those of you who may want to visit this website for getting more understanding about what we do in the area of online education, you will be able to visit knowledge.org website. So this is what I actually planned. Let me see how it goes. I try to finish it in about 25 to 30 minutes, and then we can take some questions. So we'll first, of course, everybody knows that there is a crisis in education all over the globe, and particularly in India. And higher education space in India is not very good news, because you see, India is not in the top best institutes in the world when it comes to higher education. And so there I wanted to draw some analogy with other areas of life where we are number one, and try to learn some lessons from there. And then I put together a small proposal. Maybe a part of my proposals may also appear sufficiently provocative for you, but we'll see as it goes. And then, of course, I'll end with a positive note on some kind of a pedagogical guidance on how and what we can do, which is also what the whole world is actually rethinking and reimagining how we should do education in a different way. So keeping this broad outline, so let me start with some of the perceived issues. Many of them are known to a lot of people, but I'm still saying these things to some extent so that we can actually be very clear about it. So where do we stand in the world in terms of higher education? I mean, many of us know that except in some few cases of individual success, uh, as a whole, uh, the our standing, even in terms of the institutes or in terms of the number of people that we produce, in terms of the quality, we are certainly not in the top 100. So that is not a very good news, considering that we are such a large country with a large number of educated graduates. So something must be going wrong somewhere. So one of the diagnoses that people give is that our education system, particularly the higher education system, is only catering us to make a lot of consumers and not producers. So one way of understanding this would be, you can do a small activity. Suppose if you go to uh, uh, internet statistics and ask which is the topmost country which consumes most of the internet bandwidth, you would know that India is in the third place. So first place being US, second place being China, and third place being India. So that is about the consumption of the internet content. But when it comes to the production of internet content in the world, we don't have any standing in the top 100. That means we are not producing content that we want to consume. So we are mostly consuming content that is produced by others. So this is a very important diagnostic that we can understand how we place ourselves in a better place. And secondly, in our higher education system, uh, the kind of graduates that we produce due to whatever examination systems that we do are not serving the needs of the society in general, and particularly the industry in particular. And our education depends a lot on comprehensiveness of the textbooks. We prepare lectures and we deliver courses, and we sort of try to complete the syllabus and prepare students for graduation. So this is where most of our higher education, or in general education in general in India, is focusing a lot on. So the question then, of course, is that how do we deal with all these issues? So these are not unknown issues. Many people know many of these problems being already there. But then the question, of course, appears like how do we actually try to resolve some of them? So is there a way out? Of course, there could be multiple responses to it. But I thought I would try to provoke you today with some uh, way in which we have been thinking at our lab. So, so let us say we ask one good question: is India reached excellence in any one area? Of course, there may be a couple of areas, but there is certainly one important area where India is number one, and uh, and that to me is the Indian cricket. So many of you know that India always manages to be on the top of the world in this particular game. And so, is there any lesson that we can learn from this particular example? So, I will try to elaborate this point with a couple of examples. So, my argument will be clear very simply. So, when we play games like cricket, we play them together. And then, of course, we also have to ask the same question when we play our academic game in higher education institutes. Do we always play them together? How far we work in collaboration? And then, when people are uh, you know playing games, naturally all the players get involved so actively. And
Sorry, sir, to disturb you. Shall you please come closer to laptop because the sound is quite low. Is that okay?
Yeah, 1 second. So
Thank you, sir.
I can try to adjust also if possible. So can you tell me, is it better? Hello?
Not much.
Okay. So just give me 1 minute. I'll try to.
Yeah, sir. No problem. No problem.
I'll try to adjust microphone. Yeah, mic test. So can you tell me, is it better?
Yes, sir. Yes. Thank you.
It is better? Okay. So I just increase the volume a little bit. Yeah. Okay. So can you continue now?
Sir, please.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Thanks for the feedback. Yeah. So one interesting aspect that I'm going to highlight again and again is about the need for the spectators. So in any kind of game, like whether it is cricket, hockey, or football, or whatever game we play, there are a lot of spectators, and that is one of the major reasons why a lot of people, lot of people watch, and that is also a very important thing for the players as well, because people do not like to play when other people are not watching. And the other interesting thing, of course, that happens is that all the players understand the game very well. So which means that the students, teachers, I mean, if you actually try to make an analogy with what happens in our education institute, you see there is a huge gap when it comes to understanding the rules of the academic game as a whole. So here, even children who play in the street corners, they exactly know all the rules of the game, and they identify exactly when the batsman is out or exactly when the LBW is claimed and things like that. So these are This is just an analogy to understand the gravity of the situation. And then interesting thing that happens is that suppose if there is no lab, we keep cribbing to the people saying that, okay, we don't have facilities in our college, so we can't do science or we can't do research. But look at these young people. If they don't have a playground, they will convert anything that looks like a ground into a playground. And most interestingly, anything that looks like wickets, they will use them as wickets as well. So they don't basically ask for any of these things because, it's a very innovative, involving kind of practice, and it is played in every street corner, and they don't crib about facilities. And of course, it is very inclusive. It includes all the genders. It includes all people, including children. And as you can see, the frugality is one of the interesting features that makes cricket played in every street corner. People don't look for a bat or a ball or wicket or for that matter, anything. For example, in this case, this innovative person actually used packaged cotton paper as the wicket pads. And of course, as you can see, everything that he's doing here is based entirely on imitation and innovation. So this is the kind of people that we have in the ground, and we are not made use of these innovative people in nation building. As you can see, the innovation continues. They use broomsticks or chapel, whatever comes to their access, and they use all of that as part of the game. And so the question now is that, just as we took cricket to the streets, and now what I'm actually trying to argue is that it is because that we are taking cricket to the streets that we became world class. Again, I would like to translate this sentence, and because we haven't been able to take our education to the corners and the street corner, we haven't been able to take our labs, our research onto the streets, that we haven't been able to become world class. And of course, we need to build academic clubs in every mohalla of the town. So the question then appears is that can we use this kind of a metaphor, and can we actually do this to reimagine an alternate higher education system in the country? So I generally try to use this model. In this pyramid model, as you can see, uh, there is a very large number of people who are at the base of the pyramid. And even if you take this as an example for cricket, you would notice that uh, you know the uh, the largest number of people, of course, would be everybody in the society is not playing a particular game. But out of those people, there are some people who are the spectators, which will be smaller in number than the rest of the people. And among those spectators, some of them will actually become players. And some of those players end up becoming referees or coaches. So this is like a game example that I wanted to give. And when you have this kind of a pyramid structure, we know very well from what we know from ecology is that when the primary producers are very large in number, only then, it is possible for you to gain excellence in any one area. So excellent cannot be achieved even if the number of people who are excellent are very few. Excellence cannot be achieved unless the base of the pyramid is broad. So the current situation in higher education situation in India actually looks something like this. So there is a detachment because there are hardly any spectators for what we do in universities and colleges. Most of the people don't understand what we're doing in our colleges and universities. And so this is a major problem for various reasons. And what I am actually trying to see is that do we have any response to trying to make these connections and make sure that we actually have spectators as well in our higher education space. So in response to this problem, we tried answering this question at Homi Bhabha Center for Science Education in some way. And we have received some encouraging results. So this is the kind of part that I wanted to say in the remaining part of the presentation. And then, of course, if we have time, we'll actually take some questions also from you. So our objective was to actually focus a lot on projects. Of course, I will say why projects and what we should not do and what we should be doing in these cases. So we encouraged a large number of undergraduate students to create a small club with anybody who is around them, to create a club either at the end of the college or maybe inside the college, and create a small frugal lab. And in fact, the Vivekananda College is also one of the places where our hubs actually exist. People do a lot of experiments and activities even in your college. And so uh, we have now tried to create a large number of such frugal spaces across the country. So what we normally do is we use a project as an opportunity for conversation. For us, conversation is the most important aspect of our entire intervention. And we encourage people to collaborate with each other. And as I said, this entire process is discourse driven and not delivery driven. I think this is a most important point that we need to understand, that even when we go online, we keep looking for courses that are delivered. But seldom we look for places where we can actually conduct a discourse or maybe have a conversation with other people in the profession. So this is one of the main point that we like to do. So we use frugal resources, and we try to increase uh, innovative ideas and experiments and innovations, and try to use that context for a large number of explorations. So uh, so there is one interesting thing that happened. As I said, in the pyramid, what we were lacking was the spectators. So first of all, how can we convert our students as spectators of the higher education and academic practices in the world? So to give that, I would like to take some examples and also discuss some of the ways in which I think we will be in a position to create a lot of spectators. Okay, so the most important thing is that the gap between the higher education and the base of the pyramid, that is the people, can only be filled when we have a community of practice. And that means that our learning environment and the colleges that we have fixed, the walls that we build have to be sufficiently porous, which essentially means that we need to actually go out and actually do projects not only within the college but also outside our colleges and universities. So this is what is normally, sometimes people call it as a community of practice. So this is just a caricature to show how that we need to get out of our walls of the college and universities and actually try to establish these connections with the people. And the projects that we think of doing and the challenges that we take up are actually those challenges that we want to face. At this moment, it is very important that we talk about the COVID crisis right now. Interestingly, what is happening is that this kind of interactions between higher education institutes, the governments, hospitals, as well as the community, this is exactly what we are seeing right now. The whole world is fighting against this pandemic, and this pandemic is fighting mostly by using a community of practice model. Everybody is trying to help in whichever way they like, and it is also for the first time that a large number of people are educated about, first of all, what is this thing called a virus. And in fact, we always had flu in India. People always suffered from cold and cough, but we never worried about them until this pandemic actually happened. So in a sense, uh, right now we're truly visualizing a community of practice actually unfolding in our own eyes at this moment. So therefore, what is working during the pandemic time will also work in the normal time as well. On the other hand, what works in the normal time doesn't work during the pandemic time. So that is actually one of the important messages that I also want to give, is that we should always be ready as higher education institutes to face disasters and to face and work with communities of practice in so that we'll be in a position to, for example, educate our students ready for fighting any crisis of this kind. So I want to give a few examples, some very interesting stories that happened in our own examples from our own lab at Homi Bhabha Center. So this is a small example of a large number of people. In fact, some of these students also are from V.E.S college. So this is a picture that is taken in one of the conferences that we had recently at Homi Bhabha Center. So you can see very clearly one most important feature is that there are school students as well as college students in this picture. And that is actually very important because it is only when colleges also interact with schools that the interaction with the rest of the community actually begins to happen. So let me look at a very important thing. So while doing this activity, though we are located in Mumbai, even before the pandemic, we actually managed to reach the whole world by using online media. Like we have used whatever communication media was possible. We used email, we used Facebook, we used WhatsApp, we used Telegram. And so we also now use our own platform, which I will be talking about a little later. So we managed to reach the entire country and work with thousands of students, undergraduate students across the country in a project mode, and having been able to establish a lot of conversations and create a community of practice in which scientists, students, teachers, and sometimes often, because we are creating these labs inside the homes, even the parents, brothers, sisters, and cousins are also involved in this whole process. So this is one of the labs that has been set up during this COVID crisis, because they know that each person, each student can actually have a lab in their own home. So they one of the students basically converted their study table into a lab during this COVID period. So this picture was taken sometime around the end of April, very much within the lockdown period. The people started growing model systems and actually started doing experiments at home, because we are doing exactly what we called as the Fatta cricket model of the cricket being played here. We are taking the Fatta labs into our homes, though the lab doesn't look very sophisticated, but then investigation happens. So in a sense, we have a small saying in our lab that sophistication is required in the mind, not in the lab. Because even without resources, it is possible for us to conduct a lot of research. So here is a story out of that kind of problem. So here, the CUBE students from across the country started collecting data about the collecting flies, and then created a graph like this. Now this graph requires the data starting from 7 a.m. in the morning to about 9 p.m. in the night. As you can see, this is actually the graph not drawn on a computer on a spreadsheet. It is drawn by the school students on a piece of paper. And it's very impressive to see that 8th and 9th standard students were actually able to create data of this kind. But what is interesting is not this data. What happened actually is that while these people were doing all this activity in 2016 and 2017, some interesting thing happened, and that is the Nobel Prize for the physiology and medicine was announced, and at that time, of course, the Nobel Prize went to sophisticated labs. Hall, Rosbach, and Young are the three people who shared the Nobel Prize, and for doing what? They actually found out why there are two peaks in the fruit fly, and why during the day they sometimes sleep and they sometimes awake. That means even if there is a banana in front of them, the fruit fly is not interested in the banana in the middle of the day. So that is how you see these two peaks. And these are the discussions that are happening by a large number of cubists across the country. And all these cubists were so jubilant when this Nobel Prize was announced. Normally, what happens when Nobel Prizes were announced, it just gets published in a newspaper and very few scientists are interested in reading. But what is it that our program managed to do is that our program managed to actually create a lot of spectators for that prize. So this is exactly what I wanted to draw an analogy with cricket and this place is that, suppose when Virat Kohli hits a century or Dhoni or whatever, whoever is your favorite player, then we have the same kind of jubilation. And though we are not the players, but we feel as happy as the players themselves. And that is when, participation becomes part of our life. So what is it that our higher education system could not manage to do is that our higher education system could not manage to create students who could become spectators of higher education research that happens across the world. Whereas even our school students in our own program, that experimental program that we did, were managing to do, and of course, along with many other undergraduate students and college teachers and everybody who participated in this program. Though we managed to bring in only 100 people at our place, we have about 3,000 to 4,000 people across the country who are participating in this project. Okay, so that happened in 2019, 2017. But again, we have seen the same thing happening in 2019 Nobel Prize as well. In 2019, Nobel Prize was announced for finding out the reasons for epigenetic behavior as well as hypoxia condition in the animals. And at the same time, some interesting thing actually happened there. Let me actually show. I just open this because this is very important to show. There is a website where all our students, both the our project students, actually do. So here is one person called Pratik Shivaji Todkar from Mumbai, and he is a 12th standard student at the time when he wrote this blog. So this is what happens when people actually do projects and start in doing investigations. As soon as the Nobel Prize was announced, he published a blog at our website. And most interestingly, you can see this is the last line of inspiration that I wanted to actually show. He says that someday our cubists will surely win a Nobel Prize for his or her research in India, something that has never accomplished since independence of India till 1947. So the reason why I wanted to particularly mention this is because, see, we have somehow achieved to create spectators of science and who are actually able to see what is happening in the frontiers of the research because they're themselves doing investigations. And all of you know that we hardly do any investigations in our college labs. Even in universities, we're only preparing them for passing the exams. And so this is one of the major problems that we need to solve. And when I talked about community of practice, this story is a very important story that I wanted to tell you. So this is a story about mosquito mapping. And most interesting thing actually that happened here is that the students were capturing mosquitoes. These are basically mosquitoes that are captured uh, in their home and put it on a newspaper and then look whether these mosquitoes are actually dengue mosquitoes or Anopheles mosquitoes. So one day what happened, the girl student actually went to the college, and while the student is in the college, the parents at home, particularly the mother, also started collecting the mosquitoes. And when the student came back home, the mother gave a bunch of dead mosquitoes to the student, her daughter, saying that, okay, see, look here, there is not a single dengue mosquito among them. So which means that this is what happens when projects are done at home and outside the college walls of our thing. The knowledge that we have in our books starts percolating to our mothers, parents, sisters, and things like that. So this is a student from Govandi slum who actually managed to reach out to the family because he's doing that experiment at home. So this is just an example to show that how communities of practice can be created by perforated walls of our academies. So this is a very inspiring story for us. And in fact, right now, when the pandemic actually started happening, our lab became much more active than before. And as you can see, this is not the case with most of the labs. In fact, most of the labs shut down. Whereas our labs being already working with online education and already doing a lot of projects, so students have started doing their investigations at home, and they started creating home labs. And every evening, starting from 5 o'clock to 8 o'clock, they have an online meetings. Of course, they are using the webinar software to do that. And I mean, we call them as a chat shala. I mean, in pun of the Pathshala, that in the sense that, there are no lessons that are being delivered in those meetings, but all that they're doing is whatever discussions, whatever investigations they're doing at home, they're coming to these online meetings, are actually discussing those problems. And actually, it is at that time that all their syllabus is actually getting covered. So this is a very inspiring thing that actually happened, is that in our model, what happened was that the pandemic did not stop us from doing what we were doing. In fact, our activity increased during the pandemic time because everybody is already well connected through the social media, and they're already doing collaborative work through using the social media very effectively. So, so this is basically a very important point that I wanted to say, is that if we do discourse-driven, collaborative, investigative projects and create an opportunity for conversation, we will be doing much more justice to our higher education than I'm going to tell you what we're actually doing otherwise. So there is another interesting point that I wanted to mention here, is that one of the important things that we do is, instead of focusing on biology, instead of focusing on engineering, instead of focusing on mathematics or various other subjects, what we focus instead is what we began to call them as STEM habits. Now, these STEM habits they cut across all disciplines, that anyone from anywhere across the disciplines will find many of these STEM habits that have been listed here are useful. For example, almost every subject needs some mathematical skills. And particularly, as you know, that the current crisis of COVID tells us how important is the data, and how important is statistical thinking, and how important are the plots. In fact, for the first time, a lot of people understood there is something called flattening the curve. And this is a mathematical modeling exercise that people are doing. And now a large number of people have got excited and understood about exactly what is the meaning of that. So it is important to develop this kind of mathematical imagination than just merely covering some topic of a particular subject. Similarly, for engineering habits, tinkering, parametric thinking, calibration, etc. Similarly, for design thinking, I'm quickly going through these things. Please look at the website, and also I'm going to share the slides to all of you as we go by. So as you can see, for example, the current crisis is completely being managed with a lot of data, in fact, a lot of big data and a lot of observation that is coming all over the place, and without which no science can actually be done, whether it is social science, geography, or epidemiology, or biology, or physics, chemistry, whatever the subject that you do. All these are important things. So unfortunately, our syllabus doesn't talk about them as the focus area. This is only covered as a part of many of the other things. Therefore, these are sidelined, including, of course, the thinking and reasoning activities as well. And last and most important is the communication habits as well. That is the reporting, note-taking, citation, presenting, narrating, and things like that. So these are also some of the things that we completely neglect in our higher education system. And so we have a lot to learn from many of these things, which the West is very good in doing. First of all, in school education itself, all the children, all the students in the West learn how to, for example, write a journal every day, and start sharing those journals and write letters to people and things like that. Anyway, so whether you call them as STEM habits or you want to call them as academic habits, so it is important that let us focus our higher education and keep these STEM habits as the syllabus and not the topics of our own subjects. So the topics only become a context But if the goal is basically to develop these STEM habits, then we will have enormous amount of time to cover our syllabus. So, and of course, the question always arises that when you are actually doing these projects, what are we going to do about assessment? So what we do regarding the assessment is, when people are doing this in our online portal, we give them badges of this kind, for example. So if somebody is very inquisitive, so we give him inquisitive badge. Somebody is a statistical thinker because he demonstrated statistical thinking in his writing. Somebody has done some calibration of the instrument, so he gets a calibrator badge, etc. So for experimental design, as well as for designing, even for art and data visualization, so we give badges to all the people. So towards the end, I would like to say a few things to provoke all of you in higher education. I think the time has come to reimagine our higher education. So I'm basically saying some extreme things, so you may not like it, but still take it from me today. So stop giving lectures in the schools and colleges and universities. Don't give courses. Instead, please design investigation and innovative projects and ask students to do those projects, and then look up on the internet, look up in the textbooks, look up in the libraries to find out how the context, the project context actually helps them to bring in the content and the topics that are included in our curriculum. And so take away the classrooms and convert them into chatshalas. And this is in fact one of the important outcomes of various people who have been talking about educationists all over the world are talking about it, that saying that, let us focus on blended learning. Don't use the school and college time for lessons, delivering lessons, but use them for discussion, use them for question answer session and things like that. And also convert your labs into project studios. And of course, very important is that we keep recommending very comprehensive and very good textbooks. And one problem with the comprehensive textbooks is that because everything is there and contained in the whole process, it basically makes people completely uh, questionless, because for every question there is some answer in the book, and therefore not many questions are asked, because there are very few openings in the comprehensiveness, because that is the meaning of being comprehensive. And we try to do that whenever we write a textbook. We try to close all the holes so that no gap is left out and nothing is unsaid. And so this is one of the problems that we have. As I already mentioned, instead of completing the syllabus, try to make STEM habits or academic habits as our syllabus. And of course, the last point is a little more provocative. All that I wanted to say is that don't try to put all the people who are at the same cognitive level in one class. Instead, try to bring seniors and juniors into one single project. Then a lot of discussion happens. In fact, the school students, when they're mixed with the college students, you would not imagine that the school students challenge the college students so much that the college students actually have to look up all over the world to find out answers to those questions that the inquisitive school students keep asking. So this is basically a model by which, if you create a lot of potential difference in the classrooms, there is a possibility for a lot of conversation that happens in the schools. And then, so I wanted to add a few more provocative statements. So don't prepare the students to sit and succeed in the exam. We have done enough of this damage already, and this is not going to help them to join a professional life. And then again, do not assess students for only the content, but please start assessing their process skills, which is what I'm calling it as STEM habits. And again, there's a lot of hype about online platforms, and there is a lot of hype about learning management systems, whether free or proprietary, whatever they come. But then my pain point is that these online learning management systems are also becoming delivery platforms, and that is my main complaint. So don't use these delivery platforms, use them for discussion. So do not use online webinars for delivery of content, but use that as a blended environment to discuss, answer questions, just as our chat shalas are actually doing during the COVID period. every day from 5 o'clock till 8 o'clock in the night. So it is in that sense that, use these online academies. And I will be just mentioning to you, though I will not be having enough time to discuss in detail about the platform. So I will not discuss these pedagogical principles. These are important principles that we have obtained through our experience for the last 19 years of experiment in this area. So I will share this uh, 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 the slides to all the participants, and I will ask the organizers to share it also on their website, so that you'll be able to ask maybe more questions to you. And so this is what we actually dub it as, cool with 3 O's: collaborative, open, online, ongoing learning, in a participatory way to expand the participatory base of academic education or higher education in the country. So for that, I'm inviting all of you to this site. I won't be able to do any demonstration of this site in today's short meeting, but please do visit metastudio.org. All of you are invited. Please invite your students also. And this is one place where students, teachers from across the country are participating and discussing and on all kinds of topics that deal with both higher education as well as some part of the school education as well. So thank you, and I am ready to take questions.
Thank you so much, sir, for sharing various wonderful and innovative ideas like academic clubs, Chatshala based on Patshala, home labs, and many more carried out at Homi Baba Science Center. It was really cool to know about cool concepts. It was enriching and great experience, learning experience to understand your thoughts on practical learning mechanisms using open source. So, sir, we would start with the question and answers now. I'll not take much time. The first question is from Prajakta Megaonkar and Rajendra More. Sir, how can we make students focus on higher education if their financial background is very weak, or their parents are not educated, or they don't have access to the softwares?
Well, essentially, this is always a big question. So we try to do in various ways. First of all, making many of these things accessible to people requires, uh, the college labs being accessible to students who do not have access to such gadgets at home. And since the software that we use in free and open source does not cost anything, so it is possible to take this software to all the people. And in those areas where you know there is no internet, uh, even in such places we have developed some innovative ways in which we can create local area networks in remote colleges and remote schools. So there is a possibility of responding to those things, but it's a huge challenge. I completely agree with the questioners. So this is the place where the administration, the college administration, as well as the governments, etc., have to come together to resolve these problems.
Yes, sir. Thank you. Later question about the cricket analogy which you described.
Yeah.
Who exactly are the spectators that are being referred to in education? That is from Dr. Jyoti Tope.
Yeah. So essentially, what I'm saying is something like this. Suppose uh, uh, we have educated a large number of graduates. In fact, India is one of the largest higher education graduates produced anywhere in the world. However, if you actually look at the issue, very few of those people uh, know anything that is happening by the champions in science. So a champion in cricket is always admired. So what about those people who are the top of the world in science? So that means essentially my point is that as teachers, we fail to convert our students into spectators of science or spectators of academic projects. So the lot of news comes out in various places. A lot of journals report a lot of achievements. So the students really don't want to go and look at that place because we never told them, or we haven't even exposed them to those rules of the game. For example, even now we struggle a lot, even as teachers, we struggle a lot to write a research paper because we don't know, we don't understand the rules of the game. We get very desperate and dejected when our papers get rejected from top journals. Why? Because we haven't understood the rules of the game. Like we don't cite very well. We are not up to the mark in terms of trying to find out the updates. So that is what I meant as the students. So if we actually expose our students to investigation projects in our schools and colleges, instead of telling them about content and lessons all the time, then what happens is that every investigation project requires them to go and read something from journals, and in the process what happens is they get to expose to them. And in fact, what we have seen is that many of our students often write letters to those scientists because they have some questions, and in the process they have already established a community of practice. And in the process, when a prize is announced or some interesting innovation happens, some science news comes out, they're able to relate to that story to their life. And so this is what I mean by saying that the current education system in India has failed to create spectators. I'm not even talking that we are not players of the science. We are actually saying that forget about being players. We haven't even created spectators. So at least we should create spectators. It's a very good indicator that that we have managed to reach a large mass. So I'm saying that the if higher education institutes try to create that kind of spectators, that will be very good. So we conduct one interesting competition every year, and this is a very interesting example to answer your question. So this competition is, we ask the undergraduate students as well as the graduate students, whoever is there, to predict in September who is going to get the Nobel Prize in October. As you know, every October Nobel Prizes are announced. So whatever be their subject could be economics, their subject could be physics, whatever it is. If they actually if they actually can predict the Nobel Prize, which means that they have to understand what are the best discoveries that happened in the last 10 to 15 years in each of their subjects. If they know that, they make connections with their practice. So this is how you make spectators.
Correct, sir. Thank you. Later question is, what are your suggestions for science practical at UG PG level? How to manage during this crisis? Videos on YouTube may not be able in line with university syllabus. That is from Karun Soda and Rekha Bhatia.
Yeah, so what I would suggest is, these are the questions that are frequently asked, and we managed to solve some of these problems ourselves by, for example, creating frugal labs at their home. And people are actually conducting experiments sitting at home, and and then taking photographs and recording videos and then sharing them online with everybody else. So this they were doing earlier also, and they continue to do now even more during this pandemic. So I actually wanted to say this following thing. It's very unfortunate. I lost some time in the beginning, so I actually lost out. I'm getting calls because the other meeting is already started. So may I request all of you to please, use my email and send me more questions. So I will be in a position to reply to all of them.
Sure, sir.
I'm very sorry to cut this conversation. I'm sure there are many questions, and please send me those questions. Then I will also be able to answer them through email.
Sure, sir. Thank you very much. No problem. We will share your mail ID with the participants and they can get the direct answer from you. Sir, I would like to just say a few words. It was indeed a pleasure for us to hear your thoughts and patiently answering the questions. We came to know today about the making the STEM habits for developing technologies and open source initiatives which can be used for students to make them more competitive. The idea of keeping one senior over juniors can also be implemented. Yes, really, we can implement it at college level. Finally, we would like to conclude this session because sir has got other meetings. By saying pandemic would not stop us from implementing innovative ideas. Thank you very much, sir. It was really a pleasure for us hearing you.
Thank you so much for sharing my ideas. And I'm again, apologies for cutting the question answer session short.
No, sir, sure, it's okay. That is not a problem at all. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you.
Samita ma'am, it's over to you now. Thank you.
Thank you, Madhvi madam. It is an absolute delight for me to introduce the next speaker of the day, that is Dr. Rahul Makhijani, who works as a research scientist at Facebook, California, USA. He works in core data science on content moderation. He obtained his PhD in operations research from Stanford University, where he helped teach optimization courses. Prior to joining Stanford, he did a short stint as a quantitative analyst in investment banking with Barclays Capital. His alma mater is none other than IIT Mumbai. His illustrious academic career includes an undergraduate research award from the Dean of Academic Affairs, IIT Bombay, and the K.C. Mukherjee Award for the Best Undergraduate Thesis in the Electrical Engineering Department. His research interests include matching markets, machine learning, online learning, mechanism design, game theory, an extremely interesting area, I must say, and algorithms. He was also awarded the Narottam Seksheria Certificate of Merit and a cash prize of ₹50,000 for excellence in academic and extracurricular activities at a young age, really. As teaching learning today stands on the crossroads of online and offline options, the best advice has got to come from our young achievers like Dr. Makhijani, who are a bridge between the new and the old. As they have learned from us before, we have to learn from them today. And all of you valued participants from the safe confines of your homes, kindly keep posting your most valued questions on the chat box. We will take up as many questions as we can in the limited span of time at the end of the presentation. May I request Dr. Makhijani to please begin his presentation. So, signing off from India here and over to USA. Over to you, Dr. Makhijani.
Thank you, Samita madam, for the wonderful introduction. Before I begin, am I audible and is my screen visible?
Yeah, loud and clear. We can hear you.
Yes. Sounds good. And I would also like to thank the V.E.S faculty and the principal madam for giving me this wonderful opportunity. I think the past few months have now made it more and more imperative that we would need to innovate in the way we provide our education to our students. And even now, people would be hesitant to send their children to schools and colleges, and we need to maintain social distancing. So what has changed over the past, like online education or online teaching is nothing new. It's not a new concept. However, now we have been forced to adopt it at a much larger scale. So what I'll be talking over in the next few minutes is how do you design an effective online course? And I think as Samita madam mentioned that a lot of this was done like when I was a teaching assistant at Stanford, and we had courses which catered to students who were not like full-time students. So these were working professionals and they were located all over the world, and they were taking these courses, and the teaching material was disseminated to them in an online manner. So the idea is to adapt the things that were done here, especially for the context right now. And before I begin, I would just like to make the disclaimer that all the opinions that were expressed today are solely my own and do not express the views and the opinions of my employer. So, what is changing? When we are going from offline to online course transition, so what is going to change? So first and foremost is there are some huge advantages that come while making this transition. The first one is that, okay, these online courses can reach a much larger audience and students can learn at their own pace. So what does that mean is, okay, it's easy to, say if you don't understand some concept while the lecture is being covered, you can easily revert back to that and go through that concept again. There are fewer logistical constraints in the sense that, okay, you wouldn't need to plan, okay, to have how big of a classroom. You can cater to a much larger student body. The other advantage is okay, you can have a much more interactive mode of delivery in the sense that you can have more PPTs, you can have more animations, you can use more simulations. And the other advantage is okay, you can repeat the material over multiple offerings. For example, you make the course in 2020, you can use the same recorded videos for 2021 and 2022 and so on. However, not everything is rosy in this new online world. There are some challenges associated as well. So the first and the foremost is there is a lack of social interaction. So a lot of learning that happens, especially happens when students can ask questions in the class or when they can interact amongst themselves. And what I'll be covering in this slide is some of the challenges. And over the next few slides, I'll be talking about, okay, how some of these problems can be mitigated. The second challenge is the initial course preparation will be very intensive in the sense that you for the first time when you're making the course, it will require a lot of investment, but later on, in the second or third iteration, it becomes much more easier. Thirdly is not all content can be transferred online. This is especially true for lab intensive courses. Now there are some ways you can get around this hurdle as well. And I think the previous speaker also gave some very wonderful ideas of what could be done in those contexts. The other challenge is conducting exams may be challenging. This is especially true in case you would like to avoid plagiarism and cheating in the exams. And last, the other challenge that there are these hardware constraints. For example, not everyone has access to a very stable or a good internet connection. So how would you mitigate this problem as well? For example, there are still parts in India where internet is not as reliable. So you would want to also cater to those students as well. So what goes in designing an effective online course? So in general, each course can be composed of these 6 components. You have these 6 parts. One is lecturing. You would have a place where you can host the course and deliver the material. The third would be okay, how do you ensure the participation or attendance of the students? The next aspect is how do you make these assignments and grade them? How do you cater to the lab component of the course? And last but not the most least is how do you get effective feedback? And then it is just a cycle of this repeating over year after year. So let's go into each of these more ideas in more detail. The first one is lecturing. This might be the most intensive part, but is also the easiest. So in general, there are 2 ways of lecturing that can be done. One is an asynchronous mode and the other is a synchronous. So what does these 2 concepts stand for? Now in general, asynchronous mode is the idea that where you pre-record your lectures and then students would later on learn at their own pace. And so this one of the biggest advantages, okay, that you don't have to have a fixed schedule and there is a lot more flexibility in the way the course material can be offered. But again, the biggest disadvantage is it would discourage participation at times. Say if you have some doubts and where do you go to resolve these doubts in real time? So there are some ideas of what could be done in this context. And the other problem is it's sometimes harder to track attendance. It's hard to know is whether a particular student has watched this content or not. And usually what would happen is people would leave up the content until the end of the course when exams are due, and you would only watch it like 1 week before the exam at some like 2x the speed. So this is some of the disadvantage there. And what are the examples of asynchronous mode is? This is particularly true where there is this mode called Vedantu, or you have some pre-recorded video lectures. So this is an asynchronous mode. The second is a synchronous mode. So this is an example which is happening right now, especially when you have a lecture on Zoom. So this is typically well suited for a smaller class size, and it's much more easier to like track your participation and attendance. One of the other advantages, especially if you're teaching a class where you have some heavy like equations, or you want to teach some mathematical concepts, or use some whiteboard kind of thing or blackboard kind of concept. So what you would do is you would use your iPad, write your like make your calculations on the like app, and you could also use video share along with it. So the biggest disadvantage that comes is like, okay, if you have too many participants, and like sometimes there could be a lag. For example, you're making some announcement and people might not be able to hear, especially if the internet is not reliable. The other problem is it might be hard to have a meaningful discussion. For example, in some courses which require like, especially for which are more catered towards some like business school or MBA, which require you to have like student participation in class. So sometimes people would just participate for the sake of participation. So those are some of the things to keep in mind, especially when you have like a synchronous mode. So usually the best kind of delivery is having like a right mix or balance of like a 50-50 balance. For example, what could be done is you have like a pre-recorded video lecture, which is covering some concept, and later on you would have like another session where you can clear some of the doubts. So that would be like over a Zoom meeting. So for example, what could be done is you have an hour of Zoom meeting, you divide that into 10 minutes, have like smaller groups where they can come and ask their questions, and those questions could be resolved during that time. So these are some of the tools that could be done while aiding these two modes. Like for the asynchronous mode, one is you can have like standalone PowerPoint presentations that people can later on look at. The second thing which could be done, which I mentioned, one of the challenges was how do you ensure that people are actually watching the videos? So you could have like online quizzes at the end of the video lecture. So this is true for like a platform like Coursera, which is done here. The other thing to keep in mind, especially when there is like lower bandwidth, or like say you have a limit on how much data can be like, how big of a video can be downloaded. So you might want to make your videos of a much lower resolution, and you do not want to have very long videos. So you do not, it shouldn't not come across as a sermon. So the best is, okay, you have a like one video per concept. So that is another idea that can be done. For synchronous mode, one of the things that could be done is you could have like a chat session, and like this is an example what is being done right now. So in general, what would that require is you would require a co-host. So in general, it is difficult for someone who is delivering a lecture to also simultaneously look at the chat session. So the best case would be, okay, there is some co-host or a co-teacher to help you, and like where you have these questions and you can resolve the questions. Or the other idea would be to like keep some time at the end of the lecture where you are particularly going through all the questions that come during the chat discussion. The other thing that can be done is like you have your lecture over 1 hour, and then you like keep some break time in the middle where you also look at, okay, whatever questions that came in for the first 30 minutes of the class. Now, given that we have figured, like once you make the decision, okay, of how you're going to deliver your lectures, the other thing that should be done is, okay, within each lectures, what would be the concepts or the course outline that would be covered? The idea is not to be too ambitious, and also keep some reasonable. Like trying to cover too much material can also make it a bit counterproductive at times. So once you figure out what is going to be covered and how you are going to deliver the lectures, the next important concept is where you're going to host your course. So what would this entail is like you have a site where the entire course material can be dispensed. For example, you would have a place where a video lectures can be recorded, downloaded from. You would have a place where homeworks and assignments can be released, and this would be done at pre-decided times. And the other thing to keep in mind is it would also be a place where your homeworks and assignments can be submitted. And lastly, you would also have a discussion forum here. Like this is especially true, like, okay, if you have some question and answers. So there are examples where this could be used. So one open source platform is Moodle. The other thing that could be used is a Google Classroom. So I'll cover up something on, talk about a bit in detail about say something like Google Classroom later. But what are things that can be kept in mind to make it much more easier? So one thing you can do is you can have like a WhatsApp group. This would be especially useful if you want to send some notifications. Like, okay, especially recording some lecture or say a homework is up, or remind students that, okay, there is a deadline coming up. The second thing that can be done is you can either like a separate email for course announcements. Like this is useful, especially you want to avoid clutter in your personal mail, or you could have your own personal Gmail. If it's being used, you would keep a filter. This is especially useful when you want to track some past email. The idea is not to be bombarded, like say if you have 70 students in a class and to get 70 new emails per day. So you don't want to end up missing some of these emails if they're important. The third is there should be a mode to ask clarification or feedback. For example, after each lecture, if there was some concept which was not clear, so during the next video lecture, there should be a way to source feedback about the previous lectures, or if there is some questions regarding the homework. So that is where the discussion forum or something would be very important. The other two things to keep in mind is that there should be a significant amount of testing that goes prior to launching a course. So what does that mean is there should be a way to create some dummy email or some dummy student that would be there in the course, or it should be some fake student where you can test that whether when you make some announcement or notification, you are able to access this material. Like a lot of times even it has happened is 3 weeks have passed and you get a mail from the student is, oh, I did not know that this homework or something has already been released. And the last thing to keep in mind is there should be a single site to manage all interactions. For example, you do not want one site where your video lectures are coming. You don't want a separate site for homeworks, assignments. Keeping track of different sites can also divert attention. So it's best generally to have a single site where most of your interaction is being managed. Especially in this today's day and age, there are too many notifications and attention span is much lesser. So it's best to have all your information source in one place. This is an example that where you could give your send WhatsApp notifications to the group. For example, this is the place where you would say, okay, Zoom 1, or this is the meeting place for the first lecture of say physical chemistry. Zoom 2, this is where your organic chemistry lecture would take place. Zoom 3 where it would inorganic, and so on. And you could also, in case any clarifications or any doubts, you would provide your mobile contact. The other thing to keep in mind is especially for some, in the case where people are not able to access textbooks, there should be a place where they can download the material for the course. Or what you could do is you could take permissions from say a publisher, or keep some relevant chapters or materials, and where the course material can be dispensed from. So once your course delivery site is figured out, the other thing is, okay, this is an example which I mentioned for Google Classroom. So this is especially the student view, okay, which are the courses they are enrolled in. For example, they would be enrolled in these 3 courses. They would have okay, what is the homework that is due for each of the classes? How many other students are also there in this class? So this is an example of Google Classroom. Similarly, you can do the same thing on Moodle. So one thing to keep in mind when you choose the site is you should also not be too reliant on these platforms, because sometimes initially they might be free and they would later on, it's also possible that say if you want to, you should also be easy to transfer material across different platforms. So that is something to keep in mind, that you do not become too overly reliant on any particular platform. The next important thing, like we covered the idea of how to deliver a lecture and like what course site could be used. How do you increase engagement or how do you ensure that students are participated? So usually with online courses, one of the big challenges that comes is people would be quite enthusiastic for the first 2 weeks, but later on the participation begins to drop. Or what would happen is people would tend into like only use, say if there are just going to be some recorded videos, you just try to do it like a couple of days before the exam. And this is even true even for like across all institutes across the world. So this problem is there everywhere. So one of the things what could be done is you have some kind of multiple choice question or some way of like grade or some kind of test after the video lecture. So this is an example where, okay, you have some multiple choice question and like the student would have to answer that. And this would also be a way to sort of track your attendance or participation, whether they have taken like the video or not. So one thing that could be done is like, okay, students should only be allowed to enter the answer once. The problem is you do not want someone like to click all the options and then figure out, okay, what is the correct option. And over time your question bank will keep on increasing. Like you don't have to prepare for every possible like lecture and all, but over time your number of questions which you have will keep on increasing. The second idea what could be done is like students could write some blog or some summary after the video lecture. So here one thing to keep or one caveat is that there should not be like some copy paste. For example, people would find out about the lecture online, just copy paste that material and like write up in that summary. So when they're being graded, what could be done is like the idea is not to increase the workload for teachers. So what you would do is you could randomly sample some homeworks, see, okay, there is some copy pasting or some plagiarism that has happened there and heavily penalize. And this could be done over each week. So this would also ensure that, okay, like students are also vigilant. And the other thing that could be useful, I think as a previous speaker mentioned, it would also develop the writing habits for students, where especially in especially in schools in India, this is one thing we tend to neglect. The other thing that could be done is especially when question answers are answered, or especially you have question answers over a discussion forum, you have to ensure that there is some timely feedback for them. For example, say you're covering the concept of chirality and it is unclear for a lot of students. So during the next video lecture, you ensure that, okay, you cover this concept again or keep some 5 or 10 minutes just to revise. And this tends to be like useful, especially for like next lectures. Ideally, the onus for being up to date is on students, but some like this is one way to ensure that, okay, like having a 5-10 minute revision makes it much easier for subsequent lectures. The other thing which I mentioned is having office hours. So this is especially true when you have like a asynchronous mode of education or asynchronous mode of like lecture delivery, where you could keep like you have your lectures on Tuesdays and maybe on Thursdays there would be like an office hour where people would come and resolve their doubts. The other way of resolving doubts could be having a discussion forum. So how will you track or how do you ensure that students actually participate in the discussion forum is like you can have some portion of the grade. Like this would be for students like who would actually answer them questions. Again, the idea is not to like make the life of the teacher more difficult, but you would keep like a discussion forum and people, you could track that, okay, some of the students are asking questions and there would be some other students who would answer some of the questions. So this would also have another benefit where you would encourage or like increase your participation as well. And maybe over the end of the week, if there are like too many questions or there are questions which have some common theme, the instructor can answer those questions. The next thing is attendance. Now this is how do you track attendance? The first thing is like, this is again very specific to the instructor and it's a debate it's like which we will not go through, like is attendance important or not, and again you'll leave it again across the individual instructor. But say if attendance is important, how would you ensure, how do you track attendance? So one idea what could be done is you would have a code which is released during the video lecture. Now this could be either a numeric code, or you could have like a QR code where student could use their mobile phone to track, and then this would launch like a form and where they could record their attendance. Now again, the problem with this is if someone is just like, you know that okay, this QR code has come across at a particular time in the video, or people would share this across their own chat groups, and it could like sort of again be like beaten. But what can be done is you could have like a Google form that can also track your attendance. For example, you would release like a web link or a URL during the video lecture. The student would actually go and have to like sort of just mark their attendance. For example, this would be a Google form. They would have to enter their name, their roll number, what course they are a part of, and also you could have like a feedback for the presentation. Now again, sometimes you would just receive like a single word answer that, oh, the feedback was good, bad. You could also have like a question here, especially regarding video. Like for example, you could create like a multiple choice question or some summary question where people would have to answer that question. And this would be a question specifically for the concept that was covered during that lecture. And that would be another way to track the attendance. So you could, the other thing that could be done is, say if you want to keep this form alive just for 24 to 48 hours after the video lecture. So that would also help with the another purpose is that students are actually looking at video during the week, or they're not keeping it, or there's no procrastination across that front. So this is another thing that could be done to ensure that people are actually watching those videos and attendance is actually taking place. The other thing which I mentioned was about the discussion forum. So one of the ideas that is used here is this site called Piazza. Like for example, what is done is you have some questions on like homework 5. So people ask this question and there would be another student who would answer it. Or in the case, the instructor can also resolve this question. Okay, like where is the particular homework available? So what is the advantage of this site is like you can also get some statistics that how many people are viewing the lecture and when was the question answered, how much time there was answered. You could also get some class statistics that okay, who are the top question who are asking the questions, who are the top people who are answering the questions. People could also ask these questions in an anonymous mode. The problem is okay, you do not want the chat like some things to keep in mind is you do not want the site when keeping it anonymous. It's like a anonymous. It's a double-edged sword. Sometimes people would end up like you don't want a site to just become a place for cricket discussions, or you don't want it to become another Facebook or WhatsApp group, and you want to ensure that questions are relevant, especially for the class. So so usually this is also a part of Google Classroom that also has its own discussion forum. So this is something to think of whether you want a separate like platform where you can discuss these questions, or you would want to like have it in the Google Classroom as well. So now once we have figured out how to track attendance or how to ensure that there is some engagement along with the site, the next thing is, or the next most important part is, how do you like conduct how do you have assignments and exams? So one thing that could be done is like you have some multiple choice questions in your homework. Again, this is to like in some cases multiple choice questions, like you could have your homeworks which are specifically on MCQs, but in other cases if you want to have like okay, a question answer summary, what could be like you like say especially for mathematical, if you want to test some integration concepts, or you want to test that okay, some ideas in chemistry where it is imperative that students write their own equations, and you want to check that okay, you want to balance those equations out. In those cases it will be imperative or it is necessary to have like some Q&A. So like you would have some written answers, and what could be done there is people would actually write down those homeworks and then they would like scan and they would send it across. The other thing that should be done while having these assignments is you could have collaborative homeworks. What would that mean is you would have a group submit the homework. Like you could have a group of 3 or 4 students in the class and they would work on the homework together. So this would again help like reduce the load of grading. This would also ensure that the students interact among themselves for solving the questions. One of the problems that arises with collaborative homeworks is sometimes it would just be one student doing the homework, and then like there might be other students who are like just passive participants. So one thing that could be done is, while you could also have students submit feedback of what the other students contributed. So this would also ensure that people would contribute in the homeworks or make some effort. The other thing that could be done is you could also like shift groups. Randomly, you would also force students to randomly choose different groups. So this would also ensure that people are forced to go and interact with other participants who are there in the course. So that should be done for each group homework. One of the challenge that usually comes is like when you're assigning a grade for them, the entire group gets the same homework. So there should be a way to track which students were there in the same group. So that could be a bit of a challenge, or that is a bit of challenge when it comes, especially when you're assigning grades. The other thing that you want to think about is when you're making these homeworks, do you want to reuse the homeworks or make new homeworks every year? So when you want to reuse the homeworks, one of the things that should be done is, do you want to release the solutions online or not? Especially when you're offering a course in say 2021. So like your solutions for the problems shouldn't be available readily, because then people could easily look up the solutions and answer them. So you would one of the things that could be done is, especially when you want to like for a maths problem or for a physics problem, you want to change the calculations or you want to change the numerical method, or you can, the other effort that comes is you have to rethink new questions. So this is something that the instructor should plan ahead of time. And then if you decide to reuse the homeworks, what could be done is the solution should be discussed online, and you don't want a paper based solution coming later on. The other thing that should be done is like homework should be graded within 1 or 2 weeks of submission. This is especially useful if you want like the concepts are reused, especially for say homework 3, you would require concepts from homework 1. And if there is some like concepts that are reused, so these homeworks or the feedback should be given like as soon as possible. The other thing that could help is you can have a common rubric for grading. For example, like while grading the homeworks, if there is some integration problem and like groups forget like a constant, so thing is to like, okay, like for everyone, if the question is for 3 marks, like 1 mark is subtracted if you forget the constant, 2 marks is subtracted if you do the integration wrong, or you forget like having like if you want to do an integration of x dx of x, you forget like x square by 2. Like if 2 forgets, what would be the score? So having this common rubric makes the grading easier. Now what are these ideas are very useful, especially when you have like courses of a much larger size, and like it should be like a cookie cutter model, like or something like the way like assembly chain, especially for addressing this problem. The other thing that could be done is, especially with homeworks, you can also track students, especially when you have like when your grades are online, it's easier to track students who are falling behind. Like for example, you have some statistics of okay, the students or this particular student, or like say Rohan hasn't submitted this homework over the past 3 weeks, or the grade is low, or you could like then reach out to maybe Rohan and say, okay, what is the problem for or what could be done to help. And the other thing is when you're releasing grades, like it should be anonymous or so on. So what could be done is you can submit a summary statistics to the class, so that it will also ensure that there is some amount of competitiveness that happens among students. And like you could okay give the mean, median, and maybe max for the homework assignments. So what are some things that could be made like that could be useful while people are submitting assignments? So one thing that you should be wary of is doctor's handwriting. So this is something this is a very tough homework to grade, and you should be very like one thing that could be done is like ask students to like use Word to write the homework and submit the PDF. And again, like there should be some way to incentivize students, because problem is when you're writing say there are people who are just writing the homeworks, whereas someone who's using Word. So the amount of effort that goes into that is much more. So there should be some way to like incentivize students. The other thing is, especially when people are taking the mobile screenshot, you should ensure that the screenshot is proper. Like you don't want to like, I mean, the goal should not be for, or the difficulty, it should not be more difficult that student teacher has to go and track down the student and tell them that please submit like a proper screenshot or I'm not able to read the answer. So that is something that should be negated. It could be done once or twice, but if it's a repeating behavior, there should again be some way to penalize or make it very clear how the homework is to be submitted beforehand. In computer code assignments, something like more innovative things that could be done is like for example, you have a Pac-Man game and you want to like have an algorithm which solves like the shortest path. So you could use like ask people to code the algorithms on the simulator. Now again, like a lot of these questions are available online, and people can also reuse code. So there should be a way to ensure that okay, you could use some like place where people are forced to actually submit the code on their own. So that is something to keep in mind. So this way the homeworks can also be made more exciting, but at the same time you want to balance that. You don't want to make it too difficult, or you also want to ensure that students are actually spending some time on the homework. The next thing is, how do you prohibit cheating, especially for exams? So first and foremost is one of the things that could be done is have projects instead of exams. So this was something the previous speaker also mentioned. Like if you can have like a collaborative or like some long-term project instead of exams. So this would also force students to collaborate themselves, and it can be a bit more open-ended where people would go and make some effort to learn something more of the material. But say if projects like this is something which is impossible or not does not fit into the curriculum. So what can be done is you have to have some exams at the end. So what can be done is when students are taking the exam, like if you one way to have it, like there are some sites available which do the proctoring for you. So what can be done is you show one question at a time. There is no back of questions allowed. For example, what could be done is you have some 50 questions and each student is given like a random assortment of those questions. So there is no way they could collaborate or amongst themselves during the exam. And the other thing that could be done is there are like limited time windows. You don't want someone taking the exam at 2 o'clock and someone else taking the exam at 5 o'clock. So this would also prevent sharing of questions. The other thing that could be done is questions shouldn't be so straightforward that they go and search online or use a textbook. So even like some of the exams where you can even allow textbooks to be used can also be a bit of a booby trap, in the sense that it could be like people are like the questions are tough and you don't have the straightforward answer. The challenge here in the sense is that people are not like the challenge becomes for the instructors. Each time you'll have to think of a bit more harder questions for the exams. The other idea which could be done is you can have like external supervisors or invigilators. What does that mean is, especially when people are taking the exam in a written format, like they would pre-decide who their invigilator is. Like there would be someone who is not their friend or relative, like someone in the building or someone in their own company where they're working part-time, and that person would supervise the exam, and that person would maybe like for it, like okay, that the student has taken like done the exam over a 3-hour period and has not used any unfair means. So this would this is another thing that could be done. And again, these invigilators or supervisors should be pre-decided beforehand, and there would be someone like what could be done is you also like students would tell that okay, this person is going to be the invigilator or my supervisor, and they should get an okay the faculty, and that would be have the same invigilator for the exams or for the courses. The other thing, as I mentioned, this is again like a repeat point. You can only take the test once. So in case you're using some online format, There should not be like people can't be allowed to deliver or change the answers or submit it multiple times. Finally, labs. So I think the previous speaker gave some wonderful ideas on what can be done, especially in the context of lab. But first and the foremost thing to remember is like online labs, there's no real replacement for an actual lab experience. But one way this problem could be worked around is you would have like a smaller lab class, and what would happen is the teacher is doing or is performing the experiment, and over Zoom people are looking at that. So what would happen is, like, say for example, there is a titration experiment in chemistry, or there is a pendulum experiment where you want to measure what the G is. So people would take those readings over the video format and then perform the calculations on their own, and they would ask the questions during the Zoom setting. So this is one way the lab can be done. The other thing that could be done is online lab kits. The problem which happens with online lab kits is it can be costly at times. So there would be, as the previous speaker mentioned, you can have some frugal lab kits. The other thing is people would do the experiments on their own and then take up some videos and post like what they have done for that lab. The other thing that can be helpful is having these virtual labs. So what does a virtual lab mean is, like, instead of teacher doing the experiment, you have this experiment which is done like in like you have a simulation of the experiment, and the instructor takes the reading for the student takes a reading from the virtual lab. Now, one of the problem that arises here is, in general, the virtual labs can also be very different from reality. For example, like, just to give a quick say if you want to measure the friction coefficient of an inclined plane. Now, problem with simulation is, if you actually do the experiment over multiple times, it is impossible or to get the same value of the friction coefficient. Like, each time someone else does the experiment, so there'll always be a bias. So that is something that people will not learn, especially when you are having or doing this over virtual labs. And like, the other thing that is the problem which will happen with virtual labs is like, people do not get a sense of, you do not learn things of what is like, what does it mean to have like a bias in readings, what does it mean to have like an error in readings, and those small nuances can be missed. So this is something like the instructor should have in mind, and it should be like told to the students, especially when if you're using a virtual lab as a mode of doing the labs. Finally, last but the most important part of the course is having a feedback. And feedback should be done like in practice, it is best to do it twice. One is during the middle of the course, especially if there is some pivoting needs to be done for the course, or you need to change some directions for the course. So it's best to have a feedback for that course. And secondly, it is also useful to have it at the end of the course, especially for the future iterations. Again, for feedback as well, many times people are very hesitant to do the feedback, or don't want to have like too many questions in feedback, because someone would like just be like selecting some random option. So a couple of times what you could do is add some funny questions, especially in the feedback, and check whether people are actually reading the feedback or giving some honest opinion about the course or not. And the other thing should be done is, the feedback should be kept anonymous in general. And again, there are the pros and cons for having that, but like if usually, yeah, you tend to learn more from anonymous feedbacks. So I think what we covered in general is those 6 components which I mentioned, which was, one was about lecturing. The other was having like a proper or a fixed site where the material can be dispensed. The third thing is, how do you ensure or track participation or attendance? The other is, how do you do the assignments and grade? Finally is a lab component, and there's a feedback. So what are some other issues that can crop up, especially when with online courses, is if there are some legal constraints. This is especially true if you are using some material from or external resources. So in some cases, you would want to take some permissions, or like usually it can only be a problem if like the material is being like you're using commercial sources, and you wouldn't want to get into those problems. So take some permissions or use something which is already available in open source. Secondly, there might be some privacy constraints, especially when the lectures are being recorded and put up in the online forum. So some students might not be very comfortable with them. So this is something that should be kept in mind. Thirdly, there should not be too much reliance on third-party tools, especially when like you can be a bit more agile, especially if you want to change over multiple years. Or what would happen is initially a lot of third-party tools would be free, and later on they would charge some hefty fee in subsequent offering. So you might not want to be too reliant on them. Lastly, to couple of things, ensure that you have a stable Wi-Fi connection, or like you would also want to cater to see whether the students you are catering or offering this course to, do they have access to a good Wi-Fi connection or not, or whether they have do they have like access to good or easy hardware. Like just having like a good Wi-Fi is not enough. You should also have a quality of service. If there is not a stable Wi-Fi connection, or there is too much lag, then you might want to see the pros and cons of having like a pre-recorded lecture, or you would want to have like a live video lecture or not. And lastly, it's also useful to sometimes like have some initial investment for some good hardware. This is especially true if you are recording your videos. So it might be good to have some good quality videos. Again, like you don't want to have a very high resolution, because then like it beats the purpose. Especially like say if you have a very good quality video, but the student, the final user who is using the content, is not able to download those videos. So both these things should be kept in mind while like deciding these questions. I think I would now yield floor to some questions.
Well, that was really a fantabulous, down-to-earth presentation, Dr. Makhijani. We really enjoyed it. Now, as you said, questions. So here we are taking a cue from your presentation that no session is complete without questions. Only we are going in the reverse mode. I remember the last time we met was so many years back. You were attending the Lonavala leadership camp and you were a student. I was a teacher. I'm still a teacher. You are no longer a student, but I take this advantage and I'll give you a rapid fire of questions. So there has been a flood of questions because your presentation, as I said, was so down to earth. So let us see what score we can get out of 10. At least 10 questions, or let's see, we have 10 minutes. So we begin without much ado. The first question is coming from Padmaja P. Can we have a learning management system in asynchronous mode to track attendance and check how many videos have been seen by a student? This is from Padmaja P. I repeat, can we have an LMS system in asynchronous mode to track attendance and check how many videos have been seen by a student?
Yeah, so I think this is a very good question. And so what is done is this, especially when you have these video lectures which are pre-recorded. So what do some sites or something like Coursera does is like, or especially even when you have it on Facebook, like when you're watching a video, and if you tend to go on a different site, the video stops buffering or the lecture stops at that point. So they are not, the other thing that could be done is you are not allowed to go to the next lecture until you have watched the previous video. So this is something that can be done, but there are ways again to get around it. Like what would people do is ask someone else to look at the video. And in that case, there is like nothing much can be done. But the other thing what could be done is when you have like a some question answer where people or some test or people are forced to write up some summary about the video. So that is one way of like a proxy for checking whether the person has watched the video or not.
The next question, I'll actually mix two questions. These are from Prajakta and Rekha. Can we have online practical sessions in exams? And how will skill development happen when there is no hands-on training?
This is again a very wonderful question. So the problem with having these online practical exams is, again, it's a bit challenging. Like, again, there are two things. One is, do students have their own like lab kits or something, especially in the case of chemistry, or like like, for example, if the experiments are simple, then in that case, it's something they could demonstrate on their own. So one thing to keep in mind there is uniformity, especially in the sense that is there some like kit which is going to be sent to students, or like when they are doing this experiment. So you want something that is also cheap, like not very costly. The other thing is especially for online lab, in the case where for computer courses, or where people have to write some algorithms or practicals, there it is much more easier to have the online practicals. But with cases where some hardware is required, there it becomes much more challenging. Yeah, unfortunately there's not like a clear answer for them, and there are like these are some things to go about it. The other thing that could be done is, especially in the case of online practicals, whether people have understood the concepts or not, you could have some questions that are based on the experiment. This is more to test whether, okay, they have conceptually understood the problem or not. So those are some things can be done. For skills like, say, if people are, if they're going to use it on the lab, unfortunately, like unless people do it, it's almost more or less impossible for them to, like, unless they have the hands-on experience.
Okay, the next question, all of us teachers, I think this represents all of us. It's by Karun Soda. In your view, which platform is more preferable? Google Classroom, MS Teams, or Moodle?
So again, this would also be a lot based on like on instructor preference. So one thing what is done here is you would actually experiment with the platform itself. Like there is no need to, like, that was the idea. Like don't be too reliant on the platform. And what can be done is over 1 year you might choose one platform. The second year you might, or what, say if a teacher or instructor is teaching multiple courses, you could use one platform for one class and use a different platform the second class. And over the second year, to decide that, okay, this platform is the one which gives me my best return for my investment. Over the next year, use that platform. So again, initially there is some effort required, and there is some difficulty that goes in. And the other thing what you could do is, like usually a lot of people they're already using this platform. It's best to just ask them and take it. Like there's no points for reinventing the wheel, as you say.
Okay, the next question actually has come in live. I've got an SMS from another colleague in Nagaland, Dr. Inti Naro. So she keeps calling me and asking about their problems. Her question goes like this. Our college classes are starting in about 10 days. I am also just learning. Many of my students are in the village. And apart from poor connectivity, access to mobile, computer, laptop is so difficult, and many students don't have email ID, don't know how to access it. With all these problems, how do I help these students?
Yep. So this is for this again, like especially where there is no internet connectivity. So one of the things that could be done is like you have, like there's a so you have the material which is sort of printed, and this is sort of sent, like especially the exams or something are sent to the students. Again, here, like, it's unfortunate, but there'll be some more effort, especially required for students. Like they would have to send in their question. Like if there is no access to the email, either use some way of like actual have physical letters where people would submit their questions and answers. And the second thing is what could be done is have like second-hand material, like where people can buy those textbooks, or only have the relevant portion of the material sent to the students. And again, a leap of faith would be taken, especially for exams. While when you're conducting these exams, you would actually send the question paper to the students, and the hope is like, okay, there is no like, you don't want. The idea is this: you don't want to create extra barriers for them learning. So what could be done is like use written mode of communication, and that could be used. Especially if there is no, another thing that could be done is, there are like, if you have some pre-recorded clips that could be sent to the students, where again, like how they download it from, or like again in India there is they have this cheap laptops which are sent to the students. The problem with this is, you again don't want to be reliant on someone external party helping, because again you have to teach those courses, and like if help comes, good, but don't, again this is more of a personal suggestion, like it's not to be too overly reliant on something, and like yeah, you have to actually have some physical modes of communication in that sense.
That was really well answered. I hope they gain from it. Now there are a number of questions we have clubbed together, which are all on the loopholes of the online system. So Meeta, Karun, Madhuri, from them these questions are. So they say that feedback form cum attendance for a particular class may be filled by proxy. And is there a way to avoid that? Some students also may keep camera off because of, or have limited data issues. How will we know if every student has participated in completing a group assignment? Similar questions.
Yep. So like, I think there are like a couple of questions here. So let's answer them one by one. So first is when people are using proxy, and what could be done is like, one of the ideas that could be done, as I said, when you have like a form at the end where you would ask a question pertaining to the class. So you know for more or less that people are going to have to look at the video to answer that question. And again, as I mentioned, you don't want to have like multiple submissions where people are going to track the video. Like you don't want to have like say you have a question which 5 multiple questions, you don't want like people would submit all of them and keep submitting the form so that they get the correct answer. The second thing that could be done here is, especially when you are giving out the code, like especially during the video lecture, they would actually, or the URL, they would actually go and have to enter it, and there they would have to write some summary. So you would want to keep a time limit for when they do this. So that should be within 48 hours of the video. Third thing is like, people, if they want to, like usually you notice is like, if someone wants to really break something, like there is not much you can do. And it's also the onus of the student, like yeah, if someone really wants to like, there is some questions on say chemistry or physics, and if they want to have someone who is smart enough to like answer those questions, I'm pretty sure they would be smart enough to, I mean, sometimes it's just easier to actually watch the lecture and answer the question rather than going around. The second question which you asked was, the second question which was here is like camera off or not. So I think again, there is a bit of like faith you will have to have, like there is no, like again, especially even with MBA courses in Harvard, like where there is a grade which is given on participation. Sometimes students would just participate or say something just for the sake of it. And again, that would beat the purpose of so you want to like, again, there are two things. One is you want to incentivize students to ask questions, but you don't want to incentivize or force some other, like to ask useless, like I wouldn't say useless questions, but like participation just for the sake of it. So those are things to keep in mind. Yeah. I think, did I answer most of the questions, or
Yeah. Very nicely, you have tackled all of them, though I gave you a couple of questions together. The next question is from Kamlakar and Mohan. How do you design a course that is unique and interesting when you know that similar such courses are already available in various platforms?
So this is where things, where what comes is, like you already have the courses on Coursera, you already have courses on something like Khan Academy, and this is one of the things that can be done is here. Like the problem is this: if you have the courses, people are not like online platforms are not very successful in the sense is how do you ensure participation or how do you ensure that students are actually going and learning the like assignments. So this is one thing where where grades are involved. The problem is grades are more like or like there is a one way of providing incentives to students to actually go and participate in the courses. The second thing that could be done is the way of delivery. Like each instructor might have their own like style of teaching, and that is where you can sort of differentiate. The other way I would think of the model is it's not necessary you have to compete. Like for example, there might be one concept which is taught very well in some video, and let's use the video. Like the way I would see is okay. My goal is, or the instructor's goal is, I want to teach this concepts, and there is some other way or easier way of explaining that. So anything that makes my job easier, that is the way I would see. It's not like again it's not your like say if you want to teach a concept in chemistry, like there are only so many ways to teach it. So it's easier sometimes. What I would say is in online courses you can re-borrow some of these ideas and you don't have to reinvent the wheel. And the effort what really goes is what you need to innovate or ensure is the students are actually participating, because even with all these modes like there is a, you cannot have a complete online mode of delivery, especially because you have to incentivize students to also be a part of this course, and that is where like you could sort of innovate or yeah.
Yeah, that is very nicely explained. Another question: are there
One thing I want to add is Samida speaks very highly of me, so please don't. We should be called mindful of that.
have their own judgment, and I'm sure nobody will disagree with me. The next question: are there any model-based labs available on the net so that students can get the aim of practical through animation? This is from Prajakta.
So I am not aware of the particular sites that already do like I'm pretty sure there are sites which are available. What I do not know is ones which are available for like free or not. So one of the things that could be done is I think the previous presenter, especially from HBCSC, lot of time they have been working actually all over the years is how do you have this lab experience that, but they are usually more catered towards school students. So I'm not aware specifically for college students or for undergraduate course. One thing that could be done is like you take the Zoom, like record those lab on your own in class, and other things that could be done is there might be some virtual lab which is available. But again, the virtual labs, they have their own pros and cons, especially with the simulations. Like the example which I gave was people will not know about when you actually want to have a pendulum and when you want to measure your like what a gravitational G is. Like in lab, it is almost impossible to get 9.8, whereas most of these virtual lab, you will always get a 9.8 answer. So this is something that could also be like there are those pros and cons, and depending on but to answer, like I don't know the any sources at the top of my head.
Okay. The next question from Dr. Madhvi Kaji: don't the students also need some training for online learning?
Yep. So this is the training. Like a lot of these sites, or especially like I think they have the tutorials online. Like how do they access it? And it will also be like a new thing, especially for students. Even when I took an online course for the first time, it was a bit of a learning experience. So especially for the first, there could always be some like a trial video. For example, there would be a clip where you all just discuss quickly the syllabus or what is going to be covered in the class. And there, if people can access that video or not, they would know about it. Like especially for Google Classroom, they have all these tutorials online of what can be done. So those can easily be used.
Okay, so one last question, and I think we would get a score of 10 with that at least. How do we ensure that students are engaged considering the space and environments at home may not be the same for all? This question is by Ruchi Fatte.
Yep. So this is I would say this is actually a tough question, especially to have engagement students. And I can speak even from the case where people are working. This is like, especially like even in like for the industry mode, initially we were doing work in offices, and right now a lot of work is shifting to an like work from home environment. So work from home environment is tougher. There is no doubts about it. What could be done is again make the process as like sort of systemized, or as like assembly, like have those kind of solution, like assembly line kind of solution. And one is like a lot of, you have to sort of incentivize people to just go and collaborate or sort of force them. Now one of the things is with different people there are going to be challenges, and those things could be kept in mind. So one way of also doing it is uh, especially with a smaller class size, it's much more easier to do is have some like one-on-ones. The other thing that could be done is like have some peer groups, especially where students can help each other. And that is say if it's a last class of 60 students, it's almost impossible for a single instructor to have interaction with the students. So other thing that is also done, especially even in institutes, there is have some way of teaching assistants. Now teaching assistants is like people who have taken the course in the prior years, and they are sort of paid to sort of like especially answer some doubt. So they are like sort of secondary instructors for the course. So that is another thing that could be done, especially if you have a very large class size.
So nice. I think we have covered so many questions. And to all the unanswered questions, I have one answer, that a well-educated mind will always have more questions than answers. So with that, Dr. Rahul Makhijani, we would thank you for this wonderful face-to-face interaction. And indeed, it's only a brilliant mind that can so simply explain all such issues. So many thanks to you for a very lucid, systematic, simplistic, and yet holistic bird's eye view of how to make our own online course. You have so smoothly covered all the nuances, the challenges, the essential components of designing a course, the balance that we need to ensure between synchronous and asynchronous modes of instruction, maybe a 50-50 split, like you indicated. Also hosting a platform, making the class more engaging, fair conduct of assignments, exams, and finally feedback for improvements. So this session has given us all the confidence indeed to make our own online courses. So it was really fantastic interacting with you. And I have actually started my vote of thanks in the reverse order in order to make it more current and relatable. And before you, I think the previous speaker, Dr. Nagarjuna, was thanked by Dr. Madhvi. His presentation was also excellent, and you related to his presentation while giving yours. So making it all fall together in a very nice story. So that was really nice. And before him, luckily the chief guest, I had the chance to thank him while he was still there online. So with that, I think I have made the vote of thanks very brief, taking the liberty with all my colleagues, all of whom have been helping, the staff, the non-teaching staff, because if I start taking names, I will take everybody's name. So I'm not going to do that, because that is how a successful program really happens, with everybody in it together. So right now, while interacting with you, I was getting backup SMSs, people collecting questions, posting them online in a Google Docs, and I was reading out from the Google Docs all these questions. So everyone, the entire team, many, and hats off to you, everyone. So thank you, Dr. Rahul Makhijani. And moving further, without much ado and delay, we still have some ground to cover, and that is more of the innovative idea presentations. So for continuing in the sequence of innovative idea presentations, I request Dr. Ritika to kindly come back on stage and conduct the same. So Ritika madam, it's over to you now.
Good evening, dear friends. As you all remember, we had played 2 videos of innovative idea presentation some time back. We will now continue with innovative idea presentation from participant number 3. Let's all hope that we can learn to innovate and translate these ideas into action in this post-COVID era. Thank you. Here comes participant number 3.
Hello everyone, I'm Namrata Relwani, the presenting author, and Ms. Prachiti Iyer and Dr. Rajashri Hillikar, the contributing authors of our idea. We are from V.E.S College of Pharmacy, Chamber. The title of our idea is Application for Academic Learning under the theme Innovations for Online Teaching, Learning and Research, and sub-themes Innovative Online Teaching, Learning Methodologies, and Innovative Conduct of the Student Activities. Everyone in this around this world are feeling the extraordinary novel ripple effects of the novel coronavirus as institutes are shut down. The education programs have come under tremendous stress and they have adapted e-learning processes, that is lectures via Zoom and other video calling apps, which went wrong to some extent. The professors did not receive proper coordination from students and it turned to online mischief, like when students logged in with fake names and locking teachers out of the video calls. A couple of hours more goes into gathering and preparing the items and props. So our idea is a solution to help everyone in providing quality education and gives opportunity to form much stronger connections with parents and students. The process is to build a customizable mobile application to individual colleges. The app will have pre-recorded lectures and study materials uploaded on the individual subjects, chapters, and subtopics to help students learn easily. Apart from academics, several essential activities will be available for students to groom and develop their skills, physical and mental health, and provide database for their health status. This is one and all app which will make e-learning easy and fruitful in this current situation and even for future. This e-learning platform will focus not only on the academics but also on various topics like health, fitness, creativity, and psychological well-being too. The app will have following features: yoga or exercise sessions in the morning, pre-recorded lectures on subject-wise, chapter-wise and subtopic-wise format, a section to share study material like e-books, PowerPoint presentations, Word documents, or relevant articles for individual topics, a daily 15 to 30-minute check-in by the mentor with the individual student to look and identify the gaps during this e-learning and assess them, an hour of collaborative work time where they do the project-based learning virtually. Students co-create their schedules with the teacher and choose what they want to work on and how long they want to work on it. A section for health and hygiene guide to spread awareness, to update students and faculty members database regarding their health by sharing their health status on weekly basis in a survey form. Weekly creative session in which a student can share their art or writing work with an online classmate or on the college virtual display board. 1 or 2 parent conferences weekly to check in with the parents. Timely feedback and communication with the learners, parents, and among the team is the critical during this time. For timely feedback from parents, survey forms which will have certain questions from every aspect. During this COVID situation, one of the faculty members from V.E.S College of Pharmacy has implemented these yoga and exercise sessions in the morning and has received great response from students and appreciation from their parents as well. The result of the actual experiment was found very positive. The teaching staff of V.E.S College of Pharmacy has uploaded lectures topic-wise on the official YouTube channel of the institute, which can be used for future reference as well. So with our idea, institutes have an opportunity to develop partnership with other academic institutions, which can ensure that the students complete their academic year where they are with wherever they are and with a multidisciplinary approach. This platform will also support students' individual learning plans and help them decide what they need to focus on. Thank you.
Hello everyone, this is Reema Khanna from the Department of Mathematics, KJ Somaiya College of Science and Commerce. Today I am going to present innovative online teaching methodologies. At the outset, I would like to thank the organizers for giving me this wonderful opportunity. Online teaching has gained popularity in the past few months to combat the stress of teachers as well as students. education is going to undergo a major metamorphosis. Online teaching may not be as catastrophic as it is portrayed by many. With meticulous planning, a teacher can successfully conduct online teaching sessions. Two aspects of online teaching have been stated here. One is synchronous learning, which is also called real-time learning, and asynchronous learning, which is self-paced learning. In synchronous learning, a teacher conducts live online teaching sessions with students. This can be done using PowerPoint presentations and video conferencing tools like Google Meet or Microsoft Teams. The teacher can create a Google Classroom where notes, assignments, quizzes, reference books, and even recordings of those teaching sessions can be uploaded. Students can take quizzes and enjoy the different types of quizzes like Kahoot, Testmoz, Edpuzzle, besides Google Form, which they are familiar with. In asynchronous learning method, learning management systems like Moodle and Canvas can be used, where a teacher can upload PDF of reference books, notes, assignments, quizzes, and even video lectures. These video lectures can be prepared by a teacher using various tools like Screencast-O-Matic, Screencastify, OBS, and many others. H5P is very interactive because with H5P, one can always insert questions at regular intervals in a video. Questions can be of the form multiple choice question, where the student ticks on the correct answer, and till the student gets the correct answer, the student does not proceed further. In fact, the student is not allowed to proceed further. At the end of every session, whether it is synchronous or asynchronous, a teacher can take a feedback from the students. The feedback can be regarding the difficulty level, regarding the pace of teaching, and other matters can be dealt with. Students can also post in their queries, their doubts on discussion forums. Of course, nothing can replace the joy a teacher gets with a chalk and duster in the hand and a blackboard behind. Definitely, e-learning is the need of the hour, and we need to change ourselves. Online teaching can never be a replacement to classroom teaching, but definitely it can be a catalyst in the learning process. Thank you.
Hello everyone. I am Ms. Shruti Kulkarni, the presenting author, and along with me are the contributing authors, Ms. Prachiti Aire and Dr. Rajeshri Hirlekar from V.E.S. College of Pharmacy. We all know that the outbreak of the novel coronavirus having its devastating effects has led us into this lockdown. Education sector has deeply suffered because of the lack of preparedness to tackle this unprecedented situation. As a result, schools and colleges were called off and exams were cancelled. This has in turn led us to devise a tool called the fourfold program in academic culture and administration work. This might prove to be useful to resolve this problem. The fourfold program provides us a structural basis to carry out academic sessions and administration work with an ease. There are 4 aspects of this program: digital library, virtual interactive sessions, open book examinations, and administration work. Digital library can be designed in the form of an app where all the study materials like ebooks, PPTs, audio visuals, notes, etc. have been collected and stored. Students and teachers will have access to it. Thus, will help them study subjects from any corner of the world using this app. Digital library cannot completely substitute the conventional methods of teaching. There will be subjects and topics that might require student-teacher interaction for better understanding. The app for virtual interactive session will involve collaborative videos and can also be used to conduct assignments and viva with real-time evaluation and feedback system. Coming to the next aspect, that is open book examinations. The students will be allowed to carry the study materials into the exam scenario. Taking exams won't be restricted just to memorizing syllabus, rather will ensure application-based questions and evaluation of problem-solving skills. Misconceptions associated with open book exams get ruled out because finding reference followed by its interpretation and then its application within given limit of time will require prior understanding of the subject. Administration work can be done by adopting communication via email. Email services are authentic and prompt, thus will help in speeding up the process of notifying people, receiving feedbacks, and resolving the queries. It also forms a reliable platform for exchange of documents in various formats. Thus, to summarize the application of fourfold program in academic culture and administration work, we can say it is an effective, economic, prompt, and secure tool requiring a very nominal investment. It is user-friendly and will prove to be useful in the lockdown and in the post-lockdown era as well. Thank you, one and all.
I'm Dr. Maninder Kaur Dhaliwal from B.K. Birla College, here to present a type talk on real-life classrooms, my innovative idea, the way forward. My talk is primarily divided into four aspects, that is abstract, introduction, methodology, and conclusion. Now, in the current pandemic situation, the academic fraternity ways of working have been overhauled primarily to various e-platforms of learning. From interpersonal teaching learning, we are now shifted to zero contact teaching learning, which will at least partly be the way forward for all of us. According to me, we need to have a blend of traditional learning, which was completely experiential, and modern e-learning on our fingertips. The methodology of teaching learning earlier involved that the learning started with a particular subject in depth, followed by examination to secure qualifications, and then apply the learned knowledge in jobs or entrepreneurships. The individual learned application-oriented skill sets on job and then struggled for few years to be successful. As he or she gained financial stability, then he or she dared towards philanthropy to contribute to social equity. It is imperative that the current education system blends the traditional Gurukul experiential learning and the e-learning process for better impact on individuals of these times. In this basic approach, the students will learn with experiencing real world first, followed by choosing an area of interest and future employability based on his learning in society. The higher education institutes should take the onus of providing such opportunities by introducing various approaches like provision of 6-month internships in defined courses. They can offer a small seed money for entrepreneurship or skill development, and the main course content can be taught using ICT tools and e-platforms. So to conclude, such an approach of teaching learning will develop students with huge empathy deposits in e-banks. They will have appropriate skill sets and be job ready to succeed in all their future endeavors. That's all from me. Any questions are welcome. Thank you very much.
A very warm welcome to one and all in this session. Myself, Vaishali Rajesh from Electronics and Telecommunication Department from the Vivekan Education Polytechnic welcomes you all. I am very thankful and honored to VSEC organizing team for giving me this opportunity to share my ideas in this webinar. My today's topic to enlighten you all on innovations for online teaching, learning and research methodology. A very famous quote of Albert Einstein, learn from yesterday, live for today, hope for tomorrow. The important thing is to not stop questioning. In line with this quote, I must say it is a real indeed truth. Because whatever the today's pandemic situation, it has put a question mark on the academic education, how to fulfill this break during this pandemic COVID-19 scenario. Yes, every problem has a solution, and this is what exactly the opportunity for all to switch over from offline to online. For that, we should know the tools for online teaching learning process. For transformation of this teaching learning process through the modern pedagogical techniques. So we'll start with the presentation. So what is the objective for transforming the teaching learning process through modern pedagogical techniques? The first objective is that transforming teacher-centered passive teaching learning process to student-centered active learning process. Equipping the teachers to utilize effective teaching practices in the classrooms. Third, empowering the teachers with the modern and innovative pedagogical tools. Fourth, enhancing the student engagement through the interactive and collaborative learning. Improving learning outcomes through the use of learning management system, that is a LMS, blended teaching and digital pedagogy. Now to do so, we should know what are the different tools available for online teaching learning process. Now let us have the look on this picture. What is today's role of a teacher in the 21st century? Now, why to focus on the role of teachers in the 21st century? Because the 21st century is having more online platforms are available to dealing with each and other. So, how to forget our students also? They are more fascinated towards all these online tools or the platforms which are available, which must be included in our teaching learning process to make our teaching learning process more attractive. So for that, the teacher should possess the active learning. So whatever you used to do in the previous eras, the chalkboard and classboards we are using for teaching learning process. Now we have to change our learning styles according to student diversity. Now how to motivate the students, how to control the engagement of a student in the teacher learning process. So for that, to fulfill this requirement, what are the expectations from our teachers in the today's scenario? It will be more clear from this picture. What it shows, the today's 21st teacher should include in their teaching learning process the more attractive presentations, which includes images, charts, graphs. So in short, we have to give the pictorial representation of our ideas to the student can learn it very fast. We can create blogs, podcasts and chats. For this all, evaluations can be done on the assignments by giving the quiz, by taking the test. So for that, we can use a different platform. So you can create your own website through which you can reflect or flash your assignments, quizzes and tests so that the student can adapt for that. Or you can go for the various learning management system, that is a LMS. Or you can use a virtual classrooms, or you can design the MOOC. I have divided this online teaching learning tools in the two parts. In the first part, we will see what are the online teaching methodologies are there. So for that, I have again divided this into the 4 parts. The first part is what? Effective teaching practices. Now, how to make your teaching practices very effective? So for that, use active learning strategies in the classroom teacher. Then differentiate students with the different learning styles. Use the various tools of PowerPoint presentation for creation of your presentation. Second is the creation of online resource. So to the above activity, what you have to create the online resources. Design learning resources for online learning by including components of online teaching. Create a reflection spot, learning by doing activities in the learning dialogue so that you can evolve more, that is student-centered learning will be there. You can have an involvement of a student. Then create a video resources by using a PowerPoint, that is a screencast-o-matic softwares or the video scribe softwares. Now the third is that you can use the platform as a Moodle, that is a LMS, that is a learning management system. In the Moodle, you can use this LMS based on their requirements. There are different platforms of the LMS. The examples are Canvas, Moodle, Joomla, LMS, NPTEL, Coursera, etc. Now, by using a Genomio Moodle course, you can create your own Genomio Moodle course for the subject. Enroll the students to create the Genomio Moodle course. In that course, you can add various activities, resources, and blocks like file. You can give the notes in terms of your PDF, then presentation. You can include the pages. You can include the URLs of a different YouTube links or the materials which are available on the sites. You can include the gamification in the Genomio Moodle. Then quiz with a restriction access and the activity completion criteria in the Genomio Moodle course. After using all these activities, by completing these activities, you can award the badges and certificate to the learners in the Genomio Moodle course, so that can be positively evolved in this learning management system. Then the fourth is a digital and advanced pedagogy. In the digital and advanced pedagogy, so today's is the digital world. Everything is available on the digital platform. So you can create your e-learning resources using various online free software tools are available. So for examples, for creating some images in your presentation, you can go for the pictocharts, stencils are there. If you want your presentation more attractive, then you can go for converting your presentations by using a Prezi software. You can use the Canva software also. Now this was the first part. Now in the second part, whatever the activities you are conducted from the student, there is a evaluation should be there. So how the evaluation can be takes place. So that is what the second part, innovative conduct of student activities. In that, you can create and use a digital student response system like Mentimeter, Plickers, and the Kahoot. On this platform, you can get a response from the students. So you can put in question and you can take a real-time answering of those questions by using the Mentimeter, then Plickers, and the Kahoot. Then you can create and use online platforms for the discussion, quizzes, or conducting webinars. So that is can be through any platform that you can, for that you can create your own Google Classroom, or you can go for the virtual classroom, or there are many sources are available. Now by using this all, implement these modern pedagogical techniques in the classrooms for the effective online teaching learning process. Now these are the some links of the activities which are conducted using tools for online teaching learning process. I'll show some the activities which is the first. Suppose this is the first, which is the link which is created. So this will show you the picture that various activities which is conducted. The first is nothing but you can convert your presentation to the more attractive presentation using the Prezi software. Then you can go for the Google Classroom. In that you can put the various activities in the Google Classrooms. Then you can conduct a quiz by using the MyQuiz platform, Testmos. There are the many softwares which are available for that. You can conduct the quiz. Like one of the most interesting platform is nothing but a Kahoot quiz. So these are the all that is all which I have conducted the Kahoot quiz and which the student has enjoyed a lot. Now, this is the example of that is a Mentimeter, that is a digital student response system. So you can create a question, whatever the activities you are taking, and from that you can come to know what are the experiences of the students from all these activities. So this is again the Kahoot, that is an online Kahoot quiz is conducted, and during that the students are enjoyed more. That can be used in that single platform, or it can be played in a group. So I'll come to the end, that is a conclusion. What is the use of these offline to online teaching? So I can conclude that the online environment is a parallel process which takes place simultaneously, in which students become more active and reflective learners. The second conclusion, I can say that the variety of these online tools provides a platform for the educational learners with a flexible learning environment, of course with the internet connectivity, so that they can change from passive to active learners and become some more versatile learners. The third, the innovation in online teaching learning process provides experimental learning through the multimedia presentation. We can engage the students and motivate the students, the learners, through a collaborative learning. So on a personal note, I thank you to VSEC team to give me this opportunity to give a small presentation on this innovative learning, online teaching and learning methodology. Thank you.
Welcome to all of you in webcast Advanced Digital Pedagogical Approaches in Education with COVID Pandemic. COVID scenario made online education as an integral part of every higher education institute for institutional resilience and academic continuity. So each teaching faculty needs to be massively retrained and oriented for online teaching learning mode. In this webcast, I have given an attempt to capture all possible freely available advanced digital pedagogical tools used in teaching learning process. Software tools for presentation, we have a MS PowerPoint, Prezi, PictoChart, Canva, Google Slides, Sway and WPS Office Free. For images, we have a snipping tool, Awesome Screenshot, PictoChart, Clipart, Code Graphic Organizers and stencils. For free to use image sites, we have a Wikimedia Commons, Unsplash, Pixabay, Free Images, Creative Commons Search. Set of tools for creation of videos are MS PowerPoint, Screencast-O-Matic, Render Forest, Cam Studio, Blender, Filmora and Bandicam. We can access Powtoon, Creative and Adobe Flash for creating animations and videos. For video editing, we have a VSDC video editor, Movie Maker Online, HitFilm Express, Lightworks, Blender, and Shortcut. Software tools for podcasting are Audacity and Anchor, whereas hosting softwares are Buzzsprout, Podomatic, and Podbean. Software tools for blogging are Medium, Blogger, and Wix. For content management system, we have an option of WordPress, Joomla, Drupal, and Tumblr. For learning management system, we can use platforms like Moodle, Canvas, Blackboard, Brightspace, and Training Online. Software tools for discussion forums are Zeta Boards, BuddyPress, PHPBB, ProBoards, and Brevanet. Tools for interactive and collaborative work are Google Drive, Padlet, Wikis, Pinterest, and Scoop.it. Tools for online quizzes, surveys, and polls are Mentimeter, Socrative, Kahoot, Testmos, Google Fonts, Flickr, Monkey Survey, and Poll Everywhere. Tools for creating badges and certificates are Badger, Credly, Accredible, and Free Certificate. It is indeed a challenge for the educational institutes and the teachers on how to reach out to students and ensure continuity of education in this COVID pandemic. So dear friends, I have given an attempt to orient on advanced digital pedagogical approaches in education, one of the aspects in 21st century education revolution, and appeal teaching fraternity to explore all tools effectively, not only in a COVID pandemic, but also in a post-COVID scenario. Thank you.
Hello everyone. COVID-19 has presented us with an unprecedented situation. Here we have to, as teachers, we have to resort to new methods of teaching, learning and assessment. We are going to discuss one online assessment tool with you all today. There are different online assessment tools available, but due to brevity of time, we are just concentrating on the first one, exam.net. Exam.net is a Swedish platform. Many schools in Sweden are already making use of this particular software. The advantage of this platform is that students need not have an account to access their examination, where teachers can register, create a question paper, generate one exam key, and students can use this key to access the examination. Once the examination is done, results can be printed, downloaded, or exported to Google Drive or Microsoft OneDrive. This software is freely available for 2020. Afterwards, it will be chargeable. The steps to follow. The first and foremost, teachers have to register by filling in the details such as their name, institutional ID, name of the institution, location, etc. Once you register yourself as a teacher, the new page will appear as new examination. You just need to click onto the tab and create new exam. Here you have to enter the exam name. After that, the page will take you to exam questions. So you can have three options here. No digital exam questions. You can have a regular paper test, or use a PDF file, or use a third option where you can type in the questions or copy paste it from a Microsoft Word document. Next is student information. Whatever required information, you can just select all the boxes, whatever information you require accordingly. Otherwise, you want to have an anonymized examination, you can just select this particular option. Next is student workspace. This is a writing area for students, and you have to enable that option. And if in case you require, you can even provide them with a spell check assistant. And if it is purely optional, if you don't want to give them spell check assistant, you can disable the option. Next is security. There are three options available. Whichever suits you, you can select that. Require high security, allow any browser but with high security, or allow any browser. But for the high security, you will require SCB software. Once the settings have been done, you can click on to the Create the Exam tab, and the examination is ready. The system will generate an exam key. You just need to share this key with the students so they can access the examination. There are certain additional features available with the software, such as language help. If in case students find it difficult to understand the meaning of something, synonyms can be used. Speech synthesis, where the system will read the instructions to the students, and audio files. This is specifically for students with visual impairment, where teachers can save the question paper in an audio format and the system will read it for them. And the last one is subject-specific tools. For example, in mathematics paper, teacher can provide them with calculator. So this is a very friendly tool. With a little bit of learning, any teacher can master it and use it effectively for conducting online assessment. To conclude, online assessment is always quicker and faster, but we teachers always have to remember this. Our students are smarter than us. So here the key is to outsmart the students. We have to be smarter than them. Wishing you all the very best, and thank you.
A very good evening to everyone present here. I, Shweta Patil, on behalf of the Department of Microbiology at V.E.S College, takes this opportunity to present to everyone our innovative idea that we took up during the corona pandemic. Inspire Me webinar series, boundary-free continued learning process. We acknowledge the college management at V.E.S ASC for providing us the online platforms and the technical support. They always say time changes things, but you actually have to change them yourself. As facilitators, our primary goal, along with curriculum aspects, is to shape the students' overall personality, connect them globally, and open new avenues for the future. In this changing situation, where all of us are working towards e-content development, we cannot forego the conduct of co-curricular activities. The student state is not so good. Many of them have lost on their academic progress and direction. There is disillusionment among the students, leading to mental anguish. So, our department initiated the idea of a continuous learning process virtually with the Inspire Me webinar series. So, what is Inspire Me webinar series? It is a series of talks conducted in online mode aimed at connecting with the best of the resource persons, scientists, and prominent alumni. There is immense contribution to widening the mental horizons of a large audience, making the participants look forward to these weekly interactions. What is the advantage to the students? We have inspired students, reaching out to a large number of students, more than 500, which is otherwise not possible for scientific discussions. Participants cutting across all global boundaries, connecting with the best resource persons globally, thus providing learning opportunities on diverse topics. The process: the selection of the speaker, publicity of the talk, registration for the talk, conducting the session, feedback for the session, and all of the process is facilitated with the help of the convener, creative, registration, research, hosting, and the technical team. All the staff members rotate the duties during each session. So, what do we conclude? We have gathered willing learners. There is a quick evaluation process with the pre and post webinar quiz which we conduct. We have inspired to connect and make career choices. We could also visualize the functional laboratories globally, which we did during our arbovirus webinar, where we actually saw the biosafety 4 cabinet, which is used for COVID research. We could connect with our eminent alumni. Sessions could be recorded and uploaded on the college website. The conduct of such series can be continued at post-college hours. It is an important step in brand building. So, we rightly called it as boundary-free continuous learning process. Teamwork makes the dream work. Thank you.
Dear friends, we are coming at the end of the session. Today's session has highlighted the various innovations in teaching learning techniques. The phase of an education has started undergoing evolution from offline to online. Honorable Professor Ravindra Kulkarni, in his keynote address, has laid the emphasis on e-learning. He motivated the teachers to avail the knowledge at the global level, which will help the teachers to face challenges in this post-COVID era. An eminent speaker, Dr. Nagarjuna, has given us the insight of various technologies with multidisciplinary approach in learning together with new ICT tools. Young dynamic speaker Dr. Rahul Makhijani has enlightened us about the course development and the teaching methodology adopted by foreign universities
in a simple, lucid, but yet in a very interesting manner. All the innovative idea presentations were also very informative and interesting. E-learning is also called as hybrid learning or blended learning. The methodology beyond e-learning is to combine classroom learning with online learning, creating a flexible and effective model for teaching which can be synchronized and asynchronized. Teachers can adopt various online platforms such as Zoom class, Microsoft Teams, Google Classes. Homework and quiz can be done by Moodle and Canvas platforms. To maintain the bridge between the online education and the traditional education, teachers can use tools such as live chat, shared whiteboards, and virtual handwriting. Thus, this e-technology is simple, cost-effective, and student-friendly. However, there are few limitations. Not all the teachers and the students have regular or reliable access to the internet. Some technologies require tools which may not be available to the students and teachers. However, with a proper and meticulous planning, success can be achieved with online teaching. I conclude that with the amalgamation of technology and the faculty skills, there is going to be a revolution in the field of education. So friends, I conclude here. Don't forget to fill the feedback forms. Feedback links will appear in Telegram and will remain open till 10 p.m. See you tomorrow at 3 p.m. Till then, remain safe, remain digital.